Session Wednesday, June 16th. We will we have one item on our agenda. It's a presentation by Mr. Michael Burns, founder and executive director of Community and College Partners Program, to give us a presentation regarding broadband plan for the city. Mr. Burns, please, sir. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, commissioners, and other members of both the county and municipal government. I appreciate the opportunity. The last time that I spoke to the commissioners, I promised that I would come back and provide a presentation on broadband, some information and background about broadband, how it works, what it does, why it's important. That's the initial purpose of this, but at the end, I'll talk about a NOFA, a notice of available funding, that's available for states and political subdivisions, which means counties and cities. And we'll talk about that when it's due and some of the opportunities that you'll have to be able to apply for that and some possible assistance. So, and if you have questions in the course of this, please feel free to ask at any time. So we just wanted to go over the broadband basics. I mean, so many people talk about broadband, talk about the internet, but we just want to make sure people understand. So page 2, what is broadband? And I'm not going to read the slides verbatim. I want everybody to have a hard copy so you would have it to refer to when you want. But when people talk about broadband, that's just high-speed internet. That's really what it is. And you can get it in a whole lot of different ways. You can have fiber cable, you can have DSL lines, you can have the coaxial cables, the cables that are used to transmit, like if you have DirecTV or some type of subscription service. There's a lot of different ways that you can get it. And one of the other things that they talk about is the speed that you get the internet. Now, that part is really important, and we'll go into detail later on. But right now, the FCC recommendation is for 25 megabits down speed. That's how fast the information, that's how the capacity of what comes down to you. And 3 megabits up speed, which is the capacity of what you send up from your computer. That's way under what it should be, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, that's over. So on the next slide, it talks about why does broadband matter. Some pretty, interesting information here. K through 12 schools spend $7 billion on books, but when you go digital, it can save as much as $600 per student per year. Now that's based on having, of course, access to broadband, but it just shows if you've got that infrastructure, that there's a lot of savings that you can accrue working with your schools and education system. On the telehealth side, hospitals without electronic records will spend $371 billion with a B more over 15 years than their counterparts. But we also know that telehealth reduces hospital admissions by 25% and the overall length of stay by 59%. I cannot tell you how important the access to telemedicine is. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people opted for telemedicine. Why? Because it meant you didn't have to go to the ER. You didn't have to be exposed to people who potentially had the disease. And you could get the same access to information. But the problem is, if you don't have access to good, reliable, robust broadband, you can't use telemedicine, which means that health option is removed from you, okay? That's why that's important. Next page. Why does it matter? Just some numbers here. 97% of Americans search online for local products and services. If your name is Mrs. Burns, it's probably 110%. So, but everybody shops online then. Business owners know that using broadband not only increases sales, but it produces cost savings and creates jobs. On the government side, we know that broadband, if your residents and city, if your city residents and county residents have access to broadband, they have access to your services and your information all the time. They can always go online. And a lot of people will give people the option to pay their bills online. So people that have the option of paying like water bills or sewage bills online, those cities tend to get much closer to 95% of the bills paid on time because people can do it anytime. I mean, you can do it at night watching TV, you can do it in the morning when you have a coffee. If they've got to go into your office, instead of being available for 24 hours, you're only available 8, 9, 10 hours. So it makes a really big difference. For public safety, communities without access to real-time data experience a 25% higher rates of lost lives, injury, and crime. And when they talk about real data experience, that's making sure that your public safety officials have that same access so that they can look at that information real time. It's really important that they have that access. And we also know on the community side, communities with adoption rates below 80%, that means people where 80% or fewer have access to the internet, have 2,000 fewer businesses than their counterparts. So you tend to have lower businesses and you also have better home values. So both on the business side, the public safety side, the government side, and the community side, the benefits are huge when you got access to this, what I consider infrastructure, and not just a nice to have. Okay, next page. Broadband increases business efficiency for American farmers. I can tell you that farmers across the country are now using moisture sensing equipment to actually water their farms that actually generates a signal back to automatically water their crops based on the moisture condition of the crop, of the soil and the needs of the plants. And their ability to send the signal to tell that equipment to actually water at that time based on that moisture content is all based on the ability to send that signal, which means you've got to have access to the internet. We talk about broadband access is essential for student success. I can't tell you, I haven't had a chance to take a look at the numbers for Glenn County or Brunswick, but I had a conversation with the school superintendent in Bamberg, South Carolina. 50% of her students, her high school seniors, are going to fail. They're not going to complete the course and they're going to have to come back. There was 600,000 college students that dropped out, not last year, just this spring, because they were so disgusted with not having access and not being able to get their classwork done. They just said, screw it, I'm not coming back. I'll see you in the fall, maybe. Because you know, once students leave, they'll always come back. So it's extraordinarily detrimental when you're in that situation. And will we be in a situation where students need to access this remotely again? Who could have predicted 2 years ago we would have gone through COVID-19? None of us know that. So it's really important to have access to that infrastructure. And we talked about the connectivity being important to health. It's really important to be able to get access. If you don't have a hospital, or even if you do, if you want to get access to professionals, if you have broadband, you can get access. Next page, page 13. That was the part that we talked about before, the upload speeds and download speeds. So whenever you see on a broadband, they talk about one number on the top and one number on the bottom. The top number is the upload speed, how fast you get the data, and the bottom number is how fast you send it. So you tend to get it faster from that, place where you get information, but your computer tends to send it slower because you're getting it from a bigger network, but you're sending it just from your computer. So the capacity tends to be less. That's when you hear upload and download speeds, it ain't like real complicated. I mean, it's just how fast it came to you and how fast you send it out. That's really all it is, okay? Then they have the different definitions here. The speed, how fast it can get to you. The bandwidth is how big a robust a signal it can do. The reliability, which is really, really important because you want to make sure when you get access that it's reliable. You don't want to do like some places that I've been. It's like, yeah, I could talk. I could see you on my Zoom conference at 12:02, but at 12:05, what happened to the signal? I can tell you, even where I live in Henry County, Georgia, I never do Zoom conferences on Friday afternoon because the demand for internet capacity is so high that I can never get a reliable signal for Zoom conferences. And that may just be unique to me, but that's just, the pandemic has created such a large demand on the system that even all the providers were not prepared for that. So on the really peak times, like Friday afternoons, you'll find that your signals are slower, your access is worse. It's not because your provider doesn't like you. It's because so many other people stress the system. It's just like if you got water through a pipe. You know, if 2 people are drawn on the line, everybody gets a good flow. If you got 200 people drawn on the line, you get less of a flow because there's so much of a draw on it. The internet's the exact same way. So now the telecoms are working really hard to fix that. They always had plans to increase the capacity of the system, but they didn't plan on this demand as a result of COVID. So they're scrambling to catch up. So next page, page 15. So let's talk about capacity. So the government standard is 25 megs down to you and 3 megs up. I can tell you that ain't even close to what you really need, okay? If you are looking at improving your broadband and having both in the city and the county, robust broadband throughout the county and the city, it's gotta be at least 100 megs down and 20 megs up. And you'll see that when you take a look, when we talk about the notice of availability of funding, it requires 100 down and 20 up, which is 4 times what the government standard is. But I had that debate when they were putting out the NOFAs, and I said, you should never put out a notice requiring less capacity than what people really need. And why is that 100 important? 2 reasons. For school applicabilities, to be able to get to the broad range of libraries, you need at least 100 megabits to be able to go across the globe and get access to educational information. The second more important reason is if you're doing telemedicine and you want to get to a hospital and talk to professionals at a hospital, you can't do it with less than 100 megs. So you may talk to a local doctor, but if it's really serious and you need to talk to somebody at the hospital, if you don't have 100 megs, you can't get to them. That's why that's important. That's why when you see notices of availability of funding come out, you're not going to see 25.3. You're going to see 120. And why? Because 100 should be the minimum standard. I mean, if you don't remember anything else of what I tell you, please remember that. You never want to ask for less than 100 megs at down speed and 20 up speed. Never. Because if you ask for less, you're not giving your county or your city the minimum of what you need to have to be robust. You won't be able to compete. You know, so you don't, go into the car dealership in January of 2000, well, for my wife, I guess it would be November of 2021. You don't go into the car dealership in November looking at the 2019s. You're looking at the 2022s. You know, if you want to get something that's going to be new and clean and robust and it's going to give your citizens what they need, then it's got to have at a very minimum 100 down and 20 up. I mean, that's really, really important. You really should ask for more, but you should never accept anything less than that. That should absolutely be the minimum standard, okay? So they talk about what speed is right for your community. I just put a star by 100 megs because you should never ask for less than 100 megs. It should always be that minimum. Because even when they tell you they're gonna get 1 gigabyte, I mean, I have AT&T service in my office and they say, we're gonna provide you 1 gig. Now I have on my phone a little app where you can actually check the speed of the service you get. I've never seen 1 gig. I've seen maybe 300, maybe 200. But when you ask for 100, it may be 100, but you gotta have at least that capacity. But if you can ask for more, you should always ask for more. But you should always have a floor, like no matter what somebody tells you, say, I'm not accepting less than 100. You gotta be able to tell them that, okay? Really important. Page 17. So when people talk about about broadband, a lot of people wonder, well, how's that infrastructure work and how do I get that? Well, there's 3 components to it. One's called the backbone. That's like a huge transmission system that if you look at that map of the US, that's a huge transmission system that crosses a country. The middle mile taps into that backbone and branches out to smaller places. It's sort of like a water system where the outflow from the water plant may be like an 8-inch line. then your distribution system may be a 6-inch line, and then you may have like a 2-inch line going to the houses. That's the comparison. The backbone's the big line. The middle line is branches off of that, and the last mile is what comes to your house. And what comes to your house can be in a whole lot of different forms. It could be, like I said earlier, coaxial cable, you know, it could be satellite, it could be, you know, a digital cable. There's a lot of different ways it may come to you depending on how the service is provided, but that's the last mile part. So, you know, those big pipes that send that initial system, those are big. And in case you want to know where that one is above Florida, when I mentioned Bamberg earlier, it literally runs right underneath the city of Bamberg, who has almost no access to broadband.
Who has no access to it?
50% of our students are going to fail. They gave them mini towers thinking that those would work, but they didn't have the cell phone capacity to work with the mini towers. So even though the students had computers, they couldn't get a signal, which means they couldn't get access, which means they failed. So, and meanwhile, underneath the ground is one of the huge trunk lines that feed, you know, help feed the whole United States. The people didn't even know that. So we're talking to them. We're like, okay, we got to talk about this. You can't have this big line right underneath it here and, like, you know, 200 feet above you, you got nothing. We got to figure out a way to do that. So we're working with them to try to figure out how to get them access, because that doesn't make sense. Okay. So, but again, because people don't know, because you're not armed with the information, you can't ask the questions and go back and say, hey, what are we doing here? So, but that's the breakdown on how it comes. So when they talk about fiber connections, there's really, you know, 4 key ones. Aerial is running cables across telephone poles, sort of like they run the electrical wires. Sometimes they'll run those cables along with electrical wires. They tend not to do that too terribly much because they tend to get interference from the electrical system, but it is doable. Buried is the best. And I would tell you, Mayor and Commissioners, if you are digging up a street, put down fiber cable. Whenever you dig up a street, you should always put fiber in the ground, because fiber is incredibly cheap, but the reason it's so expensive is the cost of digging it up and putting it in the ground. The actual line is cheap, but the cost is in digging it up. So if you're ever redoing streets or redoing water systems or sewage systems, always ask, hey, we need to put some fiber on the ground, you know, beside that. Even though you may not use it today, that fiber doesn't rust or corrode, it's almost good forever. So as long as it's in the ground, you can always take advantage of it.
We just missed L Street.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I didn't know. I would have sent up a flare. Hey, wait, you know, but so moving forward, I can tell you that we have made that argument with USDA, who does a lot of work in rural America and infrastructure systems. And we have asked them to consider making that part of the federal standard. If we give you money to redo an infrastructure system, particularly water sewage, you have to put the cable on the ground, because the cable is cheap. Do it while you got the ground open. So it's just my recommendation. You know, again, if you don't know, you know, you don't know to do it. So that's why I passed that along. That's what they mean by buried. And that's what they mean by more expensive to deploy.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Who would you get, or who would you recommend to do the fiber cables? Like if we got a street that we're working on, water system or something like that nature.
I mean, I can dig into that and make some recommendations for you, but as far as buying the fiber and actually dropping it in the ground, it's not too terribly expensive to do that, because the fiber doesn't cost that much. So if you give me your contact information, I'll look into that for you, because I don't know who would be available here and how they would do it, but I can certainly make those inquiries. Because my partner has been working in the state of Georgia on telecom and infrastructure for like 20, 25 years. So there's not too many places or people he doesn't know. So I can certainly ask, because I will go back and say, hey, I need some information about this. And he probably give me 2 or 3 names and phone numbers to say, I would recommend they give these folks a call and ask them. So, okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
So the other thing that we talk about here is coaxial cable. Coaxial cable is like I said, if you're getting like, you know, and I hate to mention specific providers, but you know, if you're getting like AT&T or one of those cable providers, they'll provide you that service through that same line. It's not as robust, but because it's buried, you know, it tends to have less interference, but it's just another way it can be provided. And there's actually old copper-based telephone systems that they will try to provide that on too. But again, anytime there's a wire involved, it tends not to be as efficient and you lose some capacity and strength in the signal over a given length of period. That's why the fiber is so good, because the fiber, there's no resistance. I mean, the signal just flows right through. But those are just different methodologies that you can use, and that's what they say, like speeds degrade rapidly over long distances. So if you were getting it through a copper line, it may have started out at 100, but by the time it got to your house, Commissioner, it's 10. Or by the time it got to your house, Mayor, it might be 2. And you're trying to like, what's going on? So, I mean, you know, it works, but you know, if you're gonna make the investment, you know, try to make the best investment. You know, like I said, fiber is more expensive, but fiber lasts almost forever. I mean, once you put it in the ground, if you had to increase the capacity, let's say from like 100 megs to 1 gig, that fiber can still handle that capacity with no problem. And there's no resistance and it doesn't degrade. So. So when they talk about on the next page, on page 20, the different technologies, there's fixed technologies where they're actually sending you a signal. There's mobile where you're using like your cell phone to get a signal. There's satellite where, you know, you may have seen the advertisements on TV like HughesNet and all, where they'll send you down a broadband signal from a satellite. And then there's microwave, and actually that's used particularly in the Southwest, where they've got high mountains, and there are Native American tribes that literally broadcast a microwave bandwidth signal for broadband. And the people who get it have a receiver, and they accept that signal. So it works if it's long and flat, or if you can post something up high and you can send it out like that, that really works. So, and it's particularly good, like in, you know, some of those places in the Southwest where, you know, you've only got 2,000 people and 200 square miles. I mean, that's a really good application. So it doesn't take a whole lot. You got one place sending it out and everybody else just has a receiver. So different ways to do it. So the thing to take away to remember is there's a lot of different ways you can get the signal. There's a lot of different ways the signal can be sent to you. You're always going to look at what's best for you. So when you're taking a look at how am I going to get this service, you're always going to take a look at what's best for you. But I would recommend, like I would recommend with any infrastructure, and despite what people will tell you, this is infrastructure, because in the 21st century, this isn't a nice to have. You got to have this stuff. Try to always get the best you can afford at the time that you get it, period. Even if it's a little bit more than you wanted to spend, always try to get the best, because this technology changes just like that. So the more capacity you can put into the system, the better long-term your city and your county will be, okay?
So why is all this, you know, like fixed cable under the ground as opposed to satellite?
Well, satellite signal, Commissioner, it's like if you threw a rock in the pond and you get the ripples, and the ripples are real strong where the rock hit, but as they spread out over time, they get smaller and smaller. That's what happens with satellite signals. The longer distance they go over, the more they spread out, the more they thin out, and you don't get as strong or robust a signal. You know, some places, you know, that's the only thing they can get, you know, so you take that like some places that aren't high and mountainous, that aren't flat, maybe satellite's your only thing that you can actually get, and something is better than nothing. But when you can put it in the ground, you don't have to worry about weather. You don't necessarily have to worry about the loss of signal strength unless it's going through like wire. When it's going through wire, it always degrades over time. You know, remember your cable TV wires are not just wires. There's like a plastic component to that that helps protect that wire. So that helps the signal integrity and strength over a longer period of time than if it was just a copper wire. So, and fiber, and the fiber that goes in the ground, when it's in the ground, you don't have to worry about weather. You don't have to worry about loss of signal. You don't have to worry about, you know, somebody hitting the telephone pole and knocking it over and it breaks the wire and all of a sudden, you know, these 500 homes don't have it anymore because wires got broken. You don't have to worry about that. Once it's in the ground, it's in the ground. And unless there's an earthquake or some natural disaster, in which case we would have a whole lot more to worry about than internet strength, you don't have to worry about it. You know, it's like I say, Commissioner, when you put infrastructure in the ground, you always try to put the very best you can because you don't do it every day. You do it every 15, 20, 30, sometimes 40 years. So you're always going to want to try to put something in the ground that the people that come behind you 30 years from now can still get service, okay? Because we are all interested in public welfare. I mean, I'm not part of the city, but you know, I've been here on behalf of Commissioner Booker for several times, and he knows I've made an ongoing commitment to both the city and the county. I want to see you, the city and the county, do well. So that's why I make that recommendation to you, okay? It's always better to be underground because it protects it more, less weather issues, better signal strength over a longer distance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it just sort of seems like in today's age, if you had 3 or 4 satellites as the Earth rotates, you still have the same coverage.
That's true, but remember, you know, satellites are pretty expensive to put up, and they're pretty expensive to maintain. And you can only put up so many. I mean, right now, that part, that low orbit Earth, that low orbit area of the Earth where these satellites go, they don't need traffic lights yet, but they're pretty close, okay? So it's not like you can just wake up and say, oh, let's send the satellite up and have it. You can't, you gotta get permission. There's specific places you have to go. You have to have what they call geocentric orbits, which you want it no matter how the Earth rotates it, you want it fixed on you all the time. So it's got to move at the same rotation speed of the Earth, all those different factors. And again, like I said, that signal, it's like throwing a rock on the pond. That signal propagates over distance. So, you know, no matter what the satellite sent out, you can't get away from the fact that it's still got to go through the atmosphere and all the air to get down to you. So you're always going to lose signal strength. But fiber in the ground where there's no resistance to the fiber, if that's plugged into your house, that's never going to change. I mean, you will always get that signal. You will always get whatever was put into that cable, you will always get that on the other end.
Okay.
Yes, I like I said, satellites are good. You know, it's sort of like, you know, if I got to feed a bunch of people and I really want to give them, you know, chicken and ribs, but all I got is hot dogs, I'd rather give them something than nothing, you know? That's how I feel about satellite. It's better than nothing. But if you can do the ribs and the chicken, you do that because it's going to be better for the people that you're trying to serve. And in this case, it has long-term benefits. And I mean, decade after decade after decade, it's always much better. So, okay. Does that answer your questions, Commissioner Martin? Okay.
Thank you.
So the page 21 and 22, I mean, those are awful pretty pictures. They look really nice. It kind of shows you what they mean when they talk about deploying the system. You can look at those at your leisure on page 21. On page 22, we talk about the connect to the community. It just talks about all the different reasons why having access to robust and reliable broadband is important. We can take a 5-minute break if you like on page 23, but that was actually part of our original presentation. So page 24, we talk about digital inclusion. Digital inclusion ensures that individuals and communities have access to robust and affordable broadband connections. enable devices to meet their needs, and the skills to create and collaborate in the digital world. So even after you put that fiber on the ground, if they don't have a computer, it doesn't matter, okay? Or at least an iPad. If they don't have a device to use it, it doesn't matter. Phones don't connect like that unless you tell it to connect like that, okay? And phones, if you've ever tried to do like Zoom or anything, phones got limited capacity. They're great, but they can't do everything that a laptop or an iPad can do, okay? Not that I'm an iPhone person, my wife has one, so I just mentioned that. So, but you gotta have the devices, and the most important thing is you gotta know how to use this stuff, okay? It seems obvious to a lot of people, but I can tell you 14% of all Georgians are 65 and older. And I can tell you that I have been in places with seniors that have no clue how to use that stuff. They know how to click it on, they know how to look at it, but they don't know how to use it to its full capacity. So why would I want to give you a closet full of food and tell you can only take food off the second shelf? You don't want to do that. You want people to have access to everything. So when we talk about digital inclusion, it's not just the infrastructure, it's the equipment to get to the infrastructure, and it's the education you need to be able to do that. Now, the education part, there are lots of ways that you can get help on that. We have schools that can actually help provide that assistance. I think Coastal College is something that the Coastal College is amenable to do, and they're here in Brunswick to be able to help educate people how to use that stuff. And, you know, I try to tell people all the time, if you don't know how to use it, don't feel bad about it. Learn how to use it so you don't, you know what I'm saying? It's okay. There's a lot of things I don't know how to do, and I've got more than a year or two on this good earth, but I don't know everything. So if I don't know, I ask. But there's so many seniors that don't ask because, well, I should know this. Well, everybody doesn't have to know that. You know, don't be afraid to ask, but when they ask, make sure we have a way to be able to help them. That's the digital inclusion part. It's the infrastructure, it's the device, and then it's the education on how to use it, okay? I can tell you, I learn how to use my computer more every time my grandkids come. Oh, you didn't know how to make a video pop up? No. So, but the thing has unbelievable capacity. And if our older Americans knew how to do it, there are so many things that they can learn how to do or understand that you, as public servants, might not have to worry about providing them because they can learn it for themselves. Okay. So page 25, aspects of digital inclusion, and that's what we talked about. How do you bridge the digital divide? And we talked about broadband access, computers, technical help and support, digital skills training. We didn't talk about one thing there, and I want to make sure that I mention that because it's really critically important. Having access to the broadband is really important, but if people can't afford it, it don't matter, okay? So I tell you the minimum speed of 100 because that tends to be more affordable, okay? People have to be able to afford it. There are all kinds of programs out there that will provide assistance to do that stuff. There's ways that cities and counties and states can provide assistance on that. But you have to make sure that the service you provide to people is affordable, because if I can't afford it, it doesn't matter how good it is. I can't afford it. So, and you're going to want to try to make sure that you're on the communities within the city and the county that need the most help, get the most access, because that's going to help them move forward. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
So does that mean that we should provide access at certain points in the city instead of just individual houses or whatever? Let's say at libraries, at city halls, at parks, at central points so people can come get the access if we provide it free of charge.
There's a lot of ways you can do it, Mr. It would not be my place to tell you how to provide service to your community. I would tell you that there are cities that do that. There are some providers that I have worked with that actually provide the downtown areas free internet service, and you can set up places for people to do that. But, and this is just my comment, they got to be able to get to them.
Yeah.
So, I know you guys are taking a look at a transportation system, because I know Coastal College had an input on that plan, and I think provided some pretty good information for the plan. As long as they can get to it, that would probably be okay, but they got to be able to get to it. And if you can do that, that would probably be fine. You know, I would tell you, if you're going to do something like that, try instead of, and this again, Mayor, not my place to tell you what to do.
Sure.
This is just Mike Burns' comment for what it's worth. Ask them where it should go.
Yes.
Because if you're doing it for them, ask them. Because
Yes.
they may tell you something you may have never thought of. What? Oh, there? Okay.
Right.
It should be where they think it makes the most sense.
Sure.
And then, I mean, you could do that. You could do that in certain communities. You could have hubs in communities where, you know, affordability is an issue to make it more accessible.
Sure.
There's a lot of different ways you can do that. That is certainly an option. But, you know, and when I say ask them, it's because, I mean, I work with college students all the time. It's what I do. And some of the solutions that college students come up with, I'm telling you, if I had thought about it 1,000 years and another month after that, I'd have never thought of the solutions they thought of, and they come up with awful good ones.
Sure.
So I have learned to trust their input on stuff because they're going to be on this earth a lot longer than me. So it should be designed for what will long-term benefit them.
Sure.
Me, I'm an old guy. I'll be all right. So, yes, ma'am.
How do we determine what our accessibility is at this point? Because, you know, there are maps that the state has developed in terms of telling us the underserved and the served. And they basically.
That's actually a really good question. And I think the state of Georgia has actually done a pretty good job of that. And I'll go back and find out that information and make sure I get it to you. The FCC, you know, came up with a determination of what they considered served communities and underserved communities. So this is what they said, okay? These 50 houses on Main Street, if 1902 Main Street got service, by God, the whole street got service. Well, you know that doesn't make sense. And the state of Georgia said that doesn't make sense. And the state of Georgia went back and redid the whole map with a lot more integrity to the map. So they have systematically, and I don't know because I was working with the Rural Center of Georgia up at Tipton. I was working with the Rural Center of Georgia about how they were redoing the map. And to my knowledge, they hadn't finished redoing the map yet, but they were almost done. And when they're done, there'll be a lot more specificity on the map. It will be like if there's 50 houses on Main Street and only 3 of them got it, that's not served, that's underserved, or they're not. So, and that's the information you need to be able to take a look and say, okay, who needs it and how do we deploy this to our citizens?
Will it provide data regarding the infrastructure, such as where fiber is in the community and, you know, what those?
I know that the NTIA has those maps that will lay out where different things are. And, you know, my partner who has been doing this for 20, 25 years, he works with engineers that actually that lay those systems out. Okay, but the new maps that Georgia does has some of that information. I know that the National Telecommunication Information Administration has some of that information. And when you combine those, I think it has almost everything. The only thing that tends to be missing is the people that actually are providing the service. They don't always say, hey, this is where all our stuff is, because they don't want people to know that. So that's the missing piece. And it would be difficult to tell you that unless they voluntarily told the NTIA that information. In some cases they do, in some cases they don't. But there is information available from the state of Georgia as far as who has access, and there is information from the NTIA with respect to what's out there. So does that answer your question? Okay. And I'll make sure that I get back to you and let you know those point of contacts or give you the name of somebody you can talk to that can give you that right off the bat. Because I don't need to be the middleman. You need to talk to the right person. So, okay.
So is
Yes,
this
ma'am.
a service that's provided within the city? If the fiber's laid down,
Yes.
you charge a fee per household. And what if you have folks who
Well, hold on, Commissioner. You can own the service and you can build the residence. You can own the service and pay somebody else to administer the service and collect it. Or you can own the service and rent it out to somebody and let them take care of all that stuff. There's a lot of different options. But I would tell you, at the end of the day, like any other asset, it will always make sense to me to try to own it if you can. There will be people that'll come and tell you, I will put this in, I will own it, I will do X, Y, and Z. That's all fine and dandy, but if they own it, they can, and eventually they can charge you whatever they want. If you own it, you get to determine that. You know, you can pay somebody, you can own the service and have somebody run it for you, which works out well. And that way you can control essentially what people are being charged. And you can break it down however you want. I mean, your customers that tend to use, you know, a lot more capacity, maybe you charge them a little more. I mean, I know from just being in downtown that we asked about the broadband service downtown, and they said it was spotty. I said, yes. If it's spotty and businesses are moving in here, that's a heck of a disincentive for businesses to come to the downtown. So if I'm a business and you tell me that you're going to take my broadband, Commissioner, from like spotty to like, man, I can come in, turn it on, bada bing, bada boom, then you should charge for that. And they'll pay that because businesses will pay for that. You know, I pay, I had different options even when I opened my own office for my own business, and I opted for the best possible service. Why? Because when I turn it on, I want to be able to do what I got to do. Businesses think the exact same way. And you can market that, because when you're marketing for new businesses that come to the city, hey man, we got robust broadband, 1 gig service, you know, it'll cost you X, and they'll pay for that because that's something that they're willing to pay more for better service on that. They will definitely do that. So, and that's an option you can do. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted you to understand you don't have to necessarily do it that way. There are different ways you can do it. You can do it where you own it and control how people get charged. And when you own it, you know, that's an asset, the city and the county. I mean, if you wanted to, you could market that. I mean, let's say, for example, and I'm making this up, let's say you put fiber in the ground and you're providing a 100 meg service. There's a whole lot more capacity on that fiber. And, you know, AT&T or somebody else may come and say, boy, you know, I'd love to piggyback on some of that and be able to do something too. Oh, okay. This is what it costs you. And you make them pay you for using service on your line. It's another option or opportunity to make money that you otherwise wouldn't have had. That's why fiber on the ground is so really important, because it got the capacity is almost unlimited. So, and they may not even want it to you. Maybe, you know, Flexi says, boy, we need X and the city can't do that. We want AT&T to do that. Okay, AT&T, you can give it to them and you can go right through our system and this is all it's gonna cost you. Well, it's unused, you're not using it anyway, but you're now making money on it by essentially leasing them to use that service to give to other people.
So how do you cross jurisdictional lines between city and county?
With respect to fiber?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's however the city and county want to work it out. I mean, you know, you can do it based on geographic boundaries. You know, theoretically, Glenn County could say, we're going to provide service in Glenn County and they can control it all, or they can say, we're going to provide it in partnership with the cities, and it would be a partnership between the county and the municipality. It's really up to you. It's however you want to do it. I mean, you know, everybody got money from the American Rescue Act, you know. I would take a look at the opportunity to leverage some of that to be able to make that investment, because anytime you're spending money on robust broadband, knowing that the business's service in the downtown is spotty, you will always benefit from that, no matter what. You have businesses moving into the downtown now, into storefronts now. Just think if you were able to offer 100 meg, 1 gig broadband service, robust service. They'd never have to worry about it. They can come in at midnight, turn it on, do whatever they got to do. People will pay for that. And that's really important. When they did a survey for young families that are moving into cities, Their number one consideration was the schools. Their number two consideration was access to the internet. That was their number two, right behind schools, because they know how important that is. So does that answer your question? Okay.
Speaking of schools, we do have a school or college in the city. Would that be something that, you know, if the city put this structure in, that would be able to also lease to the college, or would that be something that they would be able to do on their
I
campus?
mean, it depends on how you structure it. I mean, it's sort of like a bus service, okay? It's wherever you want to provide the service. Now, if the college says they want it and you got to put like 5 more buses on and 10 more drivers be it take to them, you charge them for that. And they'll either pay for it or they won't. If they're interested in the service, they're already inclined to pay because they knew they were going to have to pay something, okay? So it depends on how you want to deploy that. I often wonder, I mean, you've got Flexi here, which is a huge, employer in the area. And what are they using? What are they doing? How come they couldn't be a partner with you guys? I would certainly at least ask that question. So, because that's law enforcement. I mean, I'm not saying they get unfettered money, but they do all right. But again, the affordability issue is always going to be an issue for the poorer members of your community. And you're going to want to try to find a way that even if you can't give them 1 gig, if you have to give them 100 megs and it's reliable, it's still good service, okay? Or maybe you want to, like you said, Mayor, set up places where they can use it. But you're going to want to try to find a way to make sure that they get access, because they shouldn't be deprived from the opportunity to access the system, okay? Okay. Page 27, I asked them to take that map out. They didn't do that. I still can't figure out what the heck it's about because it doesn't really say anything. So my apologies for map number 27. And the discussion about taking action about different things that you could do. Okay. So that's the broadband 101 information. That was, Commissioner, when I came before, I promised that I was going to come back and do that. Okay. Those are all the basics of what you know. And again, I wanted to give people paper because I want people to be able to walk away with something that they can have in their hand. Feel free to use, abuse, disseminate that as much as you want. This information all came from NTIA. So I didn't make it up. This came from the government agency that's responsible for disseminating this information. Okay. So this is all from them. I extracted this from another presentation because, as I was telling you, the presentation they had was like 150 slides. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to do that. I said, let's just pull the part out that we need to really tell people.
Sure.
Okay. So the one additional thing that I wanted to be able to talk about is and excuse me, because I would have printed that out too, but I thought at the last minute there was going to be a change to it. And I found out this morning there wasn't, so I didn't have an opportunity to print it out for it. But I did forward this to Commissioner Booker just before the meeting started, and he can send that to whomever he wants. But it's a it's a NOFA, Notice of Availability of Funding, okay? Broadband Infrastructure Program, it's a grant program. And it covers, the act defines a cover partnership as a state or one or more political subdivisions of a state. So that means state, county, city, they're all political subdivisions. Mayor's nodding his head. Yeah, I knew that. So, I didn't know that. I had to look it up, Mayor, just so you know. So, and a provider of fixed broadband service. So the NOFA is for $288 million. And the closing date for the applications is August the 17th. So you've got a couple months, okay, to be able to go out and put that in. It's $288 million specifically designed for cities to partner with a provider to provide service. So as I explained to the commissioner, I'm not speaking ill of providers because there's a lot of good ones out there, but they're in the business of making money, okay? So you're in the business of getting service. So you're always going to want to try to make sure that you have the ability to get what you want to get at a price that you think is fair, in a way that will be okay with you. This is a fairly short time frame. This is over the next couple months, okay? My partner in the telecom business, Stephen Stewart, who runs the technical capability support group in Atlanta, he said if the city was interested, that he could be contacted and he could talk to either the city or the county about working on your behalf to make sure that your interests were covered. Because again, I'm not saying telecoms are bad, but their primary focus is to do what they're created to do, which is to provide service and make money. You need to make sure that you should have somebody that can make sure that your interests are protected, not necessarily the telecom's interest is protected. The reason it's important right now is because this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's going to be hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, there's going to be tens of billions of dollars that come down for broadband. This is going to be the beginning of what's going to be a flood of money. So if you start out in a good position working with telecoms, as more money becomes available and you want to expand the ability of your service, you've already established yourself in a position that you're going to be a good negotiator. So if the commissioners or the mayor are interested, I will definitely put you in touch with Mr. Stewart, and I would encourage you to talk to him because he's been doing this for 25 years. I mean, he's worked for the Googles, he's worked for the AT&Ts, and he left those guys because he was tired of the profit motive and he wanted to be able to do something different. That's why he partners with me. Okay. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course, he needs to be able to feed his family just like everybody else, but he doesn't want to make decisions solely based on making a dollar. He doesn't want to do that. So that's why I'll let you know that, Mayor, and you commissioners, and if there's interest, by all means, I'll arrange. He would have been here to do this today, but his mom and aunt are pretty ill, and he's got to be home to take care of family, and I think everybody understands the importance of that. So I volunteered to come down on his behalf and do this because he is much better at this than I am. I know a lot about this. He could have told you stuff that happened 20 years ago that'd probably make you go, oh my God, I did not know that. Okay, so, but he has told me that he is available to work with both the city and the county if you're interested in that. That information on that grant, and it is a grant, the commissioner has that because I wasn't sure if they're going to. Yeah, so. And if you have questions about it when you're taking a look at that NOFA, let me know for that grant application. The guy who's overseeing this, a guy by the name of Scott Woods, he works for NTIA. He's helping oversee these. And I'm sure that I could arrange a private conversation that if you guys had questions about the NOFA, he can at least answer the questions. He can't tell you how to apply. He can't tell you who the winners are going to be. But if you have questions about what you see, then he should be able to answer those for you. So, okay.
Does the grant provide for planning? Do you know?
There is within the grant, there is a provision within the grant to cover up to $50,000 of consulting fees. So if you wanted to, for example, if you wanted to bring in, Mr. Stewart for a robust consulting service and we're willing to cover him, you can recover every penny of that in the grant application if you get, when you get the award, because it will allow you to cover up to $50,000 and he's not anywhere close. He would never even think of asking for $50,000. That's just not his style. He doesn't do that. So like I said, he's got to feed his family too, but he doesn't do this strictly for the profit motive. Okay. So I will definitely he will definitely be made available if you're interested. If the city and the county are interested, we can do that. And if you have questions about the NOFA, I will make sure that Mr. Woods is available to answer questions too. I've worked with him for years now, so he's a good partner to work with. So.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Burns? I got one, Mr. Burns. You said about applying for this grant.
Sure.
how do we know where our holes are in our structure here unless we talk to the telecoms or talk to the people who actually provide this access?
I would encourage you to do that. I would encourage you to talk to the telecoms and find out where the holes are in the system. I mean, I don't know what they'll tell you, but you know this, Mayor, you know the service you have now is not good enough. That's what you do know, because you know that the system is spotty.
Right.
That's in the downtown. It only gets worse when you go further away from the downtown area. Now, you can ask the telecoms what they are or not providing, you know, and what the holes are in the system.
Right.
They may be able to tell you, they may not. I know that Mr. Stewart can come down and make some assessments for you based on signal strength in different places and actually develop a map of what you don't have and do have that I think would be a little bit more accurate. That would be beneficial for you.
Okay.
But the telecoms may tell you that. I don't know. I don't know who your providers are, and I don't know who you would talk to. So,
Isn't some of the telecoms mandated to give out access to underserved, underserved people?
yeah, it's a capacity of 25 down speed and 3 up. That ain't.
I understand.
That ain't good enough. That's not good enough. Okay, and they are required to find ways to provide capacity.
Right.
Nobody said it had to be good.
Right.
Nobody said it had to be more than 25.3. Nobody said it had to be reliable. Nobody said it had to be something that, whether it was Monday at 8 o'clock.
So, but we don't know whether they're doing that or not. We have no idea. So I guess.
And I would certainly ask them that question. What are you providing and what are people paying for your service? I would ask them.
Yes.
That. Yeah, I would definitely ask them that, because you're going to have to, at some point, the whole purpose of this NOFA is to be able to work with the providers, to be able to get what you need. What I'm trying to point out to you, Mayor, is, and again, please understand, I'm not speaking disparagingly about providers, because I'm not. But they have their primary interest, and the city and the county have their primary interest.
Sure.
And they aren't necessarily the same interest, okay? You need to make sure you have somebody that you can trust to be able to make sure that your interests are protected.
Okay.
You know. Right.
Right.
Right. And if they can do that, that's fine. But you want to have somebody, a trusted agent, giving you your information. And I'm not saying the telecoms are bad, but you know, it's like I said, you know, the devil's in the details. You got to provide broadband service. Okay.
Right. Okay. So also you seem to be advocating for a city and county to set this up like another utility to own the system and charge as we see fit those individuals.
I would tell you, Mr. Mayor, the big telecoms, the AT&Ts and the Googles and all that, they do not want to hear you talk about broadband as infrastructure, because if it is, they have to operate under a whole nother set of rules. I would put it to you this way. Any system that's for the public good, that the public needs to use and rely on a regular basis for their welfare and good order, that's utility service. That's what water is. That's what sewage is. That's what electricity is.
Yep.
In my mind, the internet is absolutely no different.
Okay.
I mean, in June of 2021, this isn't a nice to have. You got to have this. I mean, you heard the numbers that I talked about, what happens when you don't have it. No one wants to be in the don't have section. So.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Any further questions for Mr. Burns before I close this work session? Commissioner Booker, we will also ask our IT to get with your the county's IT. So. Okay.
I would agree with that.
Our city manager will take care of that and make sure of that.
And I mean, since, you know, and I think I told Commissioner Booker, since I've been working with Commissioner Booker now for almost 4 years, you know, that I would certainly be willing to provide a letter of support for you guys for your grant application, because he's had the vested interest of the community for years and years and years. And I want to see the city do well.
Okay.
So.
Thank you again, Mr. Burns, for
Thank
for
you.
this informative presentation on broadband. This is something that is very dear to our heart, that we're trying to make sure our residents, our whole community here, be able to have the service, and something that we basically need, as you stated, and I believe so too as well. Again, thank you, and hopefully we'll be getting back with you quickly, or more so than later, very quickly.
I
moving forward.
appreciate, everyone's time and the ability to provide the information. Commissioner Booker, I think he has my wife's cell phone, but
Sure.
he's got all my information. So please feel free to reach out and contact me. He knows he can call me anytime he needs to. He can call me on Saturday morning or Sunday night. So if you have questions or if there's anything else I can provide, all you have to do is call and ask, and I'll be happy to serve. Okay. And thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, sir. All right. Okay, Commissioners, we have, this is the end of our work session. We only had one item, was the presentation by Mr. Burns on broadband. So with that, I'm going to close out this session, work session, and I will take maybe 2 minutes if you want to fresh yourself before we start our regular commission meeting. So this session is closed for the work session, and give yourself 2 or 3 minutes, and then we will convene for our commission meeting.
I can't get my agenda to pull up. Got it on there. Don't let me open it.
Sure.
Can't open the file. Make sure.
Where's my
Tap
minutes?
it. I think if you just tap it once.
Try that. I gotta get Matthew up there.
Yeah.
Pull up my agenda.
Okay, we got a couple minutes.
I know. Just gotta stand up.
There you go. No, what I did, I got all the way to the house and I downloaded it as a PDF file. So I can bring it up as a PDF file and here we are. That's how I decided. Well, I don't know now, it just screwed up. I did. So there it is, right there. So it's there. So that's how I did it.
Capital, welcome one. Wow, I need your assistant too. I'm tell you, that's why I got my birthday. Get in there. I heard. I don't think I'll make it. All right. Well. Good. All right. All right. Thank you. It's a little chill up here, huh, Julie? Well, no, I'm gonna tell you. They changed this to filter the air, so not where I'm at. That's one of the reasons I've been
I
noticing
get
that.
cold so easily.
I was
Spend my life.
I would give you
That's all I can say.
I would give you
I have to, thank you. You have done that before. Over the course of our time together, you have done that before. You saw me like this.
Yeah. Right.
I'm at home and my legs will just ache because when I get cold and tense,
Yeah, you
I
get
focus
stiff.
it in my legs.
Right.
And I quit home and I'll lie in bed and I'll just like my legs ache, like growing pains. Did you ever have growing pains growing up? Oh. Like when your legs are just ache.
He went to the wrong thing. He won't go to the city.
I did.
Yeah.
Last time you told me to go to another side. I have looked at. That's what Kyle told me. Our side. I'm just on the freeway.
No, I was that way all day today. I don't know why, since I woke up. Yeah, I don't know. All day I've
Yeah, don't be trying to do me all that stuff. Felicia, hey, look here. You remember them days when I didn't go to class? It was probably this class. That's the one I went into. I sure did. But that's why I went. Okay, I'll give you a couple more minutes. We gotta go, y'all.
So you did the magic thing.
I went in that same. Yeah. That's exactly what. Same concept, you're right.
You didn't do that.
I see you
Okay. So you're not always using it on this.
No, it's just a PDF file.
Okay.
But you said it again. You can see right here. That's like I said, it's right there, it's a PDF file. Yep. Listen, hey,
Okay.
Naomi, you can get my paper back. You can get my note. You okay? You can get my notebook back if you don't act right.
Just listen to him.
Hey, if your stuff ain't gonna act right. Are you ready? Yeah, I'm ready now. They got me ready. All right, we're ready to start, everybody. Get our seats.
We're running 15 minutes behind. We got a long agenda tonight and executive session as well. Yeah. Matthew, will you get the doors for me, please? Are you ready on the left? Ready on the right? Okay. I'd like to call to order the City Commission meeting dated Wednesday, June 16th. We will rise by invocation led by Commissioner Williams, followed by our pledge of allegiance. Please rise.
Let us bow. Eternal God, our Father, we come now in the name of your Son, Jesus, and we pause and we say thank you for another day. Thank you for this great city in which we live. And Father, we thank you for all that you provided for us. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to come together again in this setting. We ask now that you would guide us, guide our hearts and our minds, that we will make great decisions for this city, that it'll be better, that we will be able to live together and enjoy this great city that we live in. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. Thank you so much. We have 4 commissioners who are present here in your presence tonight. And we also have 1 commissioner, Commissioner Johnny Cason, is with us via virtually. Before I get started with our agenda, are there any amendments or additions to our agenda that needs to be brought before us? So we haven't received it, so.
I do have one there, I apologize.
Okay.
Item number 11.
Mhm.
The ordinance amendment to chapter 23
Mhm.
pertaining to signs. I would ask that that be deferred.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we defer item number 11.
Second. Motion second to defer item number 11. Further comments or questions?
I think it'd be best if we could do it second meeting in July, which I believe is, sorry, the 21st, July 21st.
Defer to
I'll
July 21st.
I'll amend the motion to defer it to July 21st.
Second.
Okay. That motion to defer item number 11 to July 21st, which is our second meeting in July. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. It appears the ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you. Also, I'd like to recognize that there are 2 county commissioners within our presence this evening, Commissioner Walter Wiplowski and also Commissioner Cap Pendig. Thank you for joining us. And to that end, Commissioners, I would like to move item number 8 up to item number 2A, if that's okay with everyone.
So move.
Second.
All right, motion second, and move item 8 to reassign it to item 2A. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. So let's move right along and get into our agenda. We had a robust work session talking about broadband, knowing that that is something that we must do moving forward. Our first item on our agenda is our public comment period. And we have one individual. Is he here? Mr. Williams? Mr. What's his name?
Mr. Williams about the community.
Yes, Mr. Williams.
Ed Williams.
It seems like Mr. Williams is not here. So we will give him opportunity if he comes later on, maybe get an opportunity to address this commission. Is there anyone else in the building who would like to address this commission while we have a public comment period open? Okay, thank you, everyone. We will close that section out. Like I said, if Mr. Williams does appear before the end of our meeting, I will give him an opportunity to speak. Item number 1, consider public hearing, alcohol beverage license, which is a new license. Our Deputy Marshal, Ms. Mundy, will be presenting. Consider approval of new alcohol beverage license for Lucky 7.
Yes, sir.
Tell the owner at 3021 Atama Avenue for retail sale of beer and wine.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Commissioners. Yes, this is for a new ownership for owner Anchor Patel. He is requesting a retail sale of beer and wine. We have done a background check and fingerprints on him, and there's nothing negative that came on. There's no previous incidents or concerns with the location. However, I did speak with him this morning and requested he was here present this evening, and he said he would be, but however, he has not appeared. So, but I do present this for your consideration of approval.
Commissioners, any questions for Ms. Monday? I know we stated for all new licenses that the individual needs to be present. I think that's one of the requirements that the commission requested. So it may be beneficial for us to wait until he addressed this commission to know how the importance of him being here to doing this process.
Perhaps defer it to the next commission meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we defer this license until the first meeting in the month of July.
It's motion second that we defer this public hearing for his alcohol beverage license until our first meeting in July. Questions or comments? City Attorney, are we within our guidelines? Okay. Right, okay. All right, so all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed have the same right? It appears the ayes have it. Thank you, Ms. Monday. Please,
Mr. Mayor, if we would just ask Ms. Monday, if you would, please let him know that
Oh, I will. I'll call him in the morning.
now, if he's not here the second time around, then it's not important to him and we'll feel the same way.
Okay, thank you, sir.
thank you.
Have a great
Monday.
night.
All right. Okay. Moving right on, item number 2, appointments, commission, agency. Our city clerk will say, this gets the Brunswick Historic Preservation Board. There's 2 appointments. And there's, excuse me a minute as we go forward here. I'm gonna get used to doing this here in a little while. Appointments for Mr. Will Worley and Kate Saby. Their terms ended 6/30/2021. Names that have been submitted for consideration. Mr. Will Worley, he would like to be reappointed again. Is that Myrna? Myrna Scott Amos, and also Mr. Josh Dukes. Their resumes have been submitted to us, have been in your packet. Mr. Will Waller asked to be reappointed, and also the other 2, Ms. Amos and Mr. Dukes, are asking to be considered as well.
Do we know, Naomi, whether either of these 2, other Myrna Amos and Josh Dukes, are on any other boards, agencies, commissions, et cetera, with the city? They're not, okay. I'll second.
Okay, it's been motion second to consider Mr. Will Worley for another term and Ms. Amos as to be appointed in place of Kate Saby. Are there any questions to that consideration?
Are either one of them here? I don't
It could be because of
Yeah.
Zoom, COVID, whatever. All right, hearing none, all in favor of Mr. Will Worley and Ms. Amos, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone against? It appears the ayes have it. Then, Madam Clerk, will you please notify Mr. Worley and Ms. Amos of their appointment to the Brunswick Historic Preservation Board? Okay.
If I could make one comment, I really appreciate the fact that you had gotten in touch with, it might have even been Josh Dukes or somebody who had an interest in a board, but they weren't appointed, and you encouraged them to apply for others. So I think if that could be done again, that was a very good step. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is Coastal Regional Commission, one appointment for non-public representative. And also our representative from the commission, I think Commissioner Martin is that our representative, but a non-public representative. Mr. Shaw McVeigh has been that for, I think, at least 2 terms. And he has requested to be reappointed. I think the term lasts for 2 years, I believe. So he's asked to be reappointed. He is, he came in to see me as required to talk about what he see the vision for moving and representing the city on the Coastal Regional Commission. So without further ado, I am reappointing Mr. Shaw McVeigh to the Coastal Regional Commission for another term. Item number 3, Urban Redevelopment Agency, 1 appointment. This is an appointment for Mr. Harash Patel. I did not receive anyone expiring to become on that board. So without actually having someone come sit down and talk with me, we're going to defer that item until at least until we get some people who are interested and to get opportunity so we can vet them that will want to be on that board. I also contacted the chairman about it, hoping that he may have had someone in mind, but he had no one as well. So Mr. Patel was served in the capacity until someone is reappointed for his seat.
So perhaps Mr. Dukes could be
Perhaps.
notified, and if he's interested,
Perhaps.
or anybody else.
All right.
Also, Mayor,
Mhm.
Mr. McVeigh,
Mhm.
we never get any updates or anything. He's representing us in the CRC.
Right.
but We never get any information.
I will make sure, well, he has come before one time before, I know that, but I will make sure he comes and give us a briefing as to what's going on. Each time he meets at the CRC, when they meet, that he comes here and give us an update.
I will say that we have not met much during COVID, and I usually try to at least put the yearly report in the commission office. And I do have some because we actually met just a few weeks ago, so I will get that in the commission, in the mayor's
Sure.
office, so all commissioners can look at it.
Make sure we all get it. Thank you. Okay. And Mayor Pro Tem, you are correct. The people who are representing us need to come back and give us a briefing update as to how they are representing us and what's going on, so we can be aware. Since they are representing us, representing the city, we need to know what it is. So thank you on that aspect. Now we're at item number 2A, which is consider approval of a letter of support for county's request to the state legislature to rename the Little River Bridge, the Bennett Bridge, in honor of the Bennett Bait Shop owners. Ms. McDuffie, our city manager, may be presenting. Or is he having Mr. Okay, County Commissioner, Mr. Cap Fendig is presenting. Sir,
Good evening,
good evening.
Mayor,
Good evening.
Commissioners. It's always a great pleasure to come over to this side of the river, so to speak, or this side of the street, and be in front of y'all with something that's fun, sweet, and nice for all of us. And this is one of those occasions. We are asking, as we said, for you to join us in a letter of support to the state legislator and the DOT to rename Little River Bridge, Bennett Bridge. And back last year, and I appreciated his vote of confidence when I wasn't even sure if I was going to run for commissioner or not. One of the local charter fishermen that I share same dock with at the marina came up to me and felt really burdened to do something wonderful. And I'm going to introduce Kevin DeZern and let you have a moment to hear his story. And then the Bennett family is here too. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay.
Good evening, guys. Just want to say thank you all for praying over this meeting. That was something that was kind of unexpected, so I appreciate that. My name is Captain Kevin Desarm. I run Georgia Saltwater Adventures. I've been a charter guide for 16 years out of Morningstar Marina. And when Ms. Bennett passed, it hit me really hard, and it's pretty emotionally because she did things for people like me all the time. And what I've got here is pages and pages of comments. We have over 780, I believe, signatures in favor of it. And pages of comments and private messages that people have sent. But just wanted to tell you all a little bit about Ms. Bennett and even George. That's the important thing is her husband, even though he passed early on, they started in 1953 and they've been serving bait to this community since. And even in spite of us dividing that causeway, which, I mean, you can imagine someone taking halfway your road traffic away, her devout faith just let her never be mad or in spite of it. It was like, we'll do good and we'll make it even though. And that encouraged people to, I mean, nobody wants to go 4 miles one way, turn around and come back. And people would just to go see her to get bait, and they knew what they were going to get with her. And kind of want to share one story with you guys, if you don't mind. So when I was 23, fresh out of college, I just started running a charter boat for another captain. I left my wallet at home, pulled in Miss Bennett to get bait, and no money. And she's a cash operation. Told her what was going on. She goes, well, baby, you're going to go on the charter. If you get tipped, you just come back and pay me. Gives me shrimp. That's the first time that she'd ever met me outside of me being a child with my dad going to buy bait. I go on this charter, come back. I think I got a $100 tip. I come back. I was happy to pay her. And she saw these trout sticking out of the back of my truck because people from Atlanta, they didn't want to take you fish home. And she was like, I don't want your money. I want those trout. And that just started this beautiful relationship. And I can tell you, there's so many times when people have been up there and they've had a hard day of fishing, whether they be from Atlanta and tourists and somebody just told them to go there, and she's giving them tips and pointers and just sitting down and talking with them or asking them their story. And you'd see people sitting under there for an hour chatting with her in the afternoon. She was always reliable. If she had bait, she was open. There was never closing. I mean, even on Sundays, when church was over, she was still selling bait. So it was really big because there was a lot of people that didn't have bait or didn't have those resources. So a lot of families know her and went to her. I don't know if you would like to hear some of these stories, but they're available if you want. But this is one of those just great feel-good things that's the mystique of Glenn County in our city. A family that's been selling bait for half a century. Everybody in the community knows them. They were always there. It's just an amazing story. And the family has so many great stories and can tell you stuff about growing up and things about it. But all of the charter fishing communities in support of this and all of the fishermen with such a tight-knit community. And you can walk on any street in any block and you see a fishing pole somewhere and they know who Miss Bennett is. And that right there probably is all you need to say. And guys, I really appreciate you consider us renaming this bridge in honor of their family.
Y'all need to write a book. Really do.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And now I'd like to introduce you the son of George and Mrs. Bennett, Billy Bennett, and his sister. Also, if she wants to come up, just say a few quick words. Tell about your mom and dad. This is Sandy.
Okay.
I don't reckon I'm dressed up when I see them. I'm out on the water. Got big hats on and they're full of shrimp. I'm usually trying to get something.
I'm Billy Bennett and my sister Sandy. I catch the shrimp. Sandy sells the shrimp. I've been doing it all my life. My dad taught me at an early age of 10 years old. He sold me a crab business. I pulled traps with him from 5 years old to 10. He said, boy, I'm tired of crabbing. I'm gonna sell you this business. He sold me the crab business at 10. Then he passed away at 85, and I was on a shrimp boat at the time. My other sister, Debbie, she started shrimping. Then she got tired of it and went to work for the other man on St. Simon's, and I took over the shrimping then and kept shrimp there all the time. I don't want to run out. I want to keep shrimp there for the people to go fishing with. And I would like to keep the business going as long as I can live. And keep the shrimp for the public to go fishing with. My mom and dad bought the business in 1953. And dad passed away in 85. My mom passed away in 2000. And I just want to hopefully keep the business going for the public to fish with and carry the tradition right on until something happened to us.
And the guy there just like Mama did. That's all I say too.
I never worked on land. You know, I don't know anything about land work. I've been on water all my life. And hopefully I stay on the water.
You know where the pokey hole is?
Excuse me.
You know where the pokey hole is?
I'm hard of hearing. I'm sorry.
Pogies, the pokey hole.
Where the pogies at?
Pokey hole?
Pokey holes are. Go plenty of them.
Oh, plenty of pokies in my town.
Okay.
Well, we thank you, sir, for coming to address us in that. And also, we thank the county commissioner for bringing you to us so we can consider this. And this is something that you guys, your mother and father is an icon to our community. This is just history that we really honor history in a sense. And so we thank you for coming and also letting us know what's going on.
Yes, sir.
So thank you again for coming and addressing us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, they start about 3:30 in the morning and go a lot later than me, so I appreciate the moment. Thank you for your consideration. I do want to add that you would make one other request. I know the county attorney is familiar with this discussion. And Mr. Mayor, one of the things that has delayed this bringing forth is exactly about the title issues to the land and the residency on there. These children are concerned and fearful about their future because we were not able to find needed documents. So I would appreciate that in this, you would also instruct the county attorney to, city attorney to draw up a document or some form of contract for their residency on that property, since there doesn't seem to be one in existence.
Well, thank you for that comment and for that recommendation as well. We will get with our city attorney and we'll see where we go with this.
Thank you.
But anyhow, thank you for coming to us, advocating for the letter of support. Commissioners, we have a letter of support for to rename the Little River Bridge. What's happened, we cannot rename it ourselves. It's a state bridge, so we have to petition, the city and the county has to petition the state to have it renamed. The county is all in favor of doing this as well. Together, we can make this request. As you noticed lately, the city and county have started doing things more collaborative together. And so this is another way of showing our cohesiveness and as we do this. So we have before us this letter of support. So what is your will and pleasure, Commissioner?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the letter of recommendation for the renaming of the Little River Bridge to the Bennett Bridge.
All right, the motion second for this commission to approve the letter of support, sign the letter of support for the request to rename the Little River Bridge, the Bennett Bridge. Hopefully everyone knows where that bridge is. It's the bridge going towards St. Simon's. Are there any further questions or comments?
I would also ask that we let DOT know that the names of the other bridges that cross over, most of them are named after the rivers. They're not there. I don't know if they've gone into disrepair, but like the Back River Bridge, the McKay River Bridge, I don't know that the signs are still there as you come east and west on the bridge. So if they could be notified to make sure. And a sign certainly needs to be made. It's one thing to name it, but you know, they need to make a sign too.
I agree with that. There needs to be signage with that. I don't know if they're gonna request us to do the sign or they would do it based upon their standards. Yes.
We do have people that have volunteered for what we might want to call a memorial or the sign, to donate funds if we do come up with that. If the city not pay for it, county, DOT, or whatever it is. So that will be financial.
I guess it's whose jurisdiction it is. I mean, if it's a state
It's a state
route or
Yeah,
a
it's a state route. It's a state route. Okay, any further comments or questions? All in favor of signing this letter of support, approval of the letter of support for the request to name Little River Bridge to Bennett Bridge, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposers? Hearing crickets, that means that this item passes unanimously. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Bendig. Thank you, Commissioner Wiflowski, for your support. And thank you, Captain. All right. And thank you, the Bennett's, please. Thank you. All right, we'll get on a little time to leave if they like to. Also, City Attorney, you please take a look at, I'm pretty sure we're already doing that already. I know we are. So, okay, about the other stuff. Okay, we move right along. Item to be considered for approval. Consider approval of the June 2nd, 2021 regular scheduled meeting minutes. It came with our package. Hopefully we had an opportunity to peruse it.
motion to approve. as
Second.
presented.
Motion second for the approval of the June 2nd, 2021 regular scheduled meeting minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. It appears the ayes have it, that motion carries. Item number 4, consider approval of resolution number 2021-09, fiscal year 2021-2022 budget. Ms. Regina McDuffie, our city manager, is presenting. It's been presented to us quite a number of other times, and so I know we are familiar with it, but you are presenting, Ms. City Manager.
Process began back in March. We formally presented the proposed budget on May 5th. The budget was also tentatively approved on May 25th. At that time, the proposed budget was $17,180,507. That budget was posted for review by the public at the clerk's office and through our website. And a public hearing was published. The date for the public hearing was published in the paper on May 26th. We also had a public hearing on June 2nd for public comment and input on the budget. And we also had a presentation at the June 2nd meeting. At that meeting, I did present an amendment to the budget that added a bucket truck lease proposal, which increased the budget by $185,000, which the budget at that time would be $17,365,507. And that basically was presented on June 2nd. We are asking for approval of the general fund budget of $17,365,507. Which is an 8% increase over last year. That budget as presented includes a 2% increase on salaries for the employees. It also includes 4.5 full-time equivalent positions, and those were reviewed at the June 2nd meeting as well. The budget also includes $826,000 worth of equipment and upgrades and replacement in the general fund, and $220,000 in the stormwater fund. The budget proposes no use of reserves from the city. but it does include a $500,000 revenue recovery from our ARPA funds. At this time, Mayor, the total budget of all funds for the city is $27,665,361. And that's an 11% decrease from last year, but that decrease is based on about $3 million of sales tax funds that, since we're not collecting the sales tax anymore, they don't show up in our budget. But we're proposing and asking for full approval of our budget, including the salary increase and the additional positions. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Commissioner, you've heard the presentation of our City Manager. Are there any questions or comments that you'd like to make before I ask for a vote?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to say that I certainly appreciate the efforts of all of our city staff and our city manager for putting together a balanced budget and doing it in such a way that has been easy to follow and real good as far as I'm concerned.
I just want to commend everyone that worked on the pay increase and the schedule for the employees. They've been able to get increase in pays throughout the entire city to make it comparable to other areas. And there's a continued effort and consciousness to continue to pursue the increases so that we can make life for our employees even more. So I just want to commend the city manager and finance department, police chief, or fire chief, public works director, all of those who have been involved in this movement forward. And so we look forward to moving forward even more. So, congratulations to each of you, and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Martin, you have anything to say?
No, I appreciate the efforts and the detail, and the way it's laid out and presented is easy to follow. So thank you.
Commissioner Kaysen, sir?
I'll just say I've offered some comments and I'm ready to go with it.
Thank you, sir. Well, I would like to just say that I'm very appreciative and honored to that this budget is presented to our public, and also with a pay increase for our employees, because if we start paying good, we would attract the best. The best will come to this organization. Quality work for quality pay, and that's what we need to do. Also, I'd like to thank our police chief, fire chief, public works director, and all the other directors of the staff from Ms. McDuffie, how they have worked with her to ensure that our city is covered very well, and leadership is very paramount. I like to say that our city manager is looking into ways, along with our police chief, for recruiting, doing things to help with recruiting, so we can get the officers to protect and serve this organization. Also, I like to say that it has been gratifying to know that people are moving in our downtown area, and one of the reasons because I believe we're getting away from that stigma that downtown Brunswick is a violent place, a crime-ridden place that people have placed out on us from years and years ago. I think, and that's all because of good leadership, and also because of customer service, protect and serve by our police officers as they do community policing throughout our city, getting out, talking to people and doing things of that nature. Also, our fire department having this ISO of 1, which is the greatest one you can have here, which really makes for our insurance on all our properties to be at a minimum, especially our citizens as well. And also our public works director, knowing that the things that they do is well, people see them and people attribute what the city is doing basically upon what they see most times, and they are out there doing those things. And also our finance director, would make sure that our money is where it should be. It's not done until the paperwork is done, and we know the numbers mean quite a bit. So we thank you all for that. And if I miss any department, our economic development department and so forth, all the others, we really appreciate all that too. Bottom line, I'm trying to say that we are very appreciative of the budgets being presented, and also the leadership of the individuals who have put forth the effort to help our city manager to present this budget to us. Very well documented, very well, easy to read, and so forth. Any other comments?
I just wanted to make this other note. We were at an MPA meeting, and that very question that you brought up about the safety of our city was given to our chief to see what we can do to rebrand or to change the perspective of how others who don't really know what's actually going on in the city see the city or view the city. And there was a community resident at the historic MBA that asked a question about the safety in someone's reasoning where they were that did not have the inside information. And the chief was able to provide that information and also ask how that could be changed, what advantages that we could be changed. And so I just wanted to put that out there as well, that the city is a safe place. We're working to make it a clean, safe, living and working place. So we want that to be known. Come to the city of Brunswick, live, work, laugh, love, and play.
Wow. That was it. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you for those words. And all the other commissioners for your comments concerning this budget that's been presented for moving forward for our next fiscal year, which will be from July 2021 to June of 2022. This resolution concerning our fiscal year budget has been presented to us, and I'll entertain a motion to about this resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we approve the 2022 budget as presented by our city manager, Ms. McDuffie.
Okay, so the motion is second for the approval of our fiscal year 2021-2022 budget as presented by our.
Was there money budgeted for our city manager to have her own bike?
That's another comment. Well, before we vote, Mr. City Manager, how much do we have in our reserve fund?
I think we're at about 6.5 million. As far as the fund balance.
Yes.
But I know that for the current fiscal year, we had budgeted to use about $750,000. And based on what I'm looking at for year end, we will not have to take any money from our reserves for this year. So I'm thinking that we will be able to contribute to that. But it's
Okay.
about $6.5 million for that.
So our reserves, if we get
Both.
But this, and I would be remiss if we did not acknowledge our city clerk and all the hard work she
Oh,
does.
yes. Oh, yes.
Really? No. She is a great support.
And our
Thank you.
city attorney.
And our city attorney.
Yes.
Takes all people.
Yes, it does. We are pleased to have good leaders to help us lead the city and make it much better than the way we found it. And again, moving it forward in the right direction. So it's been motion and second. And we've heard all the comments in a very positive way. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone who's opposing this budget? Again, crickets, which means no one's opposing. I believe the ayes have it. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you so very much. All the ones who was involved with it, and also especially our city manager for presenting this to us. As they say, go forth and do great things for the next fiscal year, and let's do things even better if we can. We've done great this year, this fiscal year. Let's do even better. Okay. Item number 5. Consider approval of the financial report as of April 30th, 2021. Ms. Kathy Mills, our finance director, is presenting.
I think what it is, mics are turned up too high. And that's what it is, so it's not to, you got to adjust it from the here.
It fails.
Sorry, I think I had an old agenda because I wasn't next.
Oh, you wasn't?
On mine.
How did I miss you?
I think I had
Yeah,
the
you're
original
next,
maybe.
you're next on our agenda.
You next on our
Something
agenda.
got changed from now on. Usually I try to be ready. Okay, you have the financial reports before you for April 30th, 2021. And at that point, we are 83.33% through with the current fiscal year. I'll go over the general fund revenues and expenditures. For the month of April, our expenditures were $215,000 more than our revenues. But the more important number is our year-to-date number, where our revenues are over our expenditures of a little over $4 million. We have a cash balance as of April 30th in the general fund of a little over $8 million. If you'll look at our lost contributions, our distributions year-to-date, for the month of April, we had an increase of 27.62%. Year-to-date, we had an increase of 12.10%. And on our title ad valorem tax, for the month, we were up 39.69%. Year-to-date, we're up 31.53%. So those numbers are all to the good for us. On the second page, you have SPLOST 6. If you go down to the bottom after the chart, you'll see we have cash on hand of about $6.5 million. If you'll remember, I think it was in May. It was in May that we reallocated some funds, so that does not show up on this report because it's as of April 30th. If you look at the next to the last column, you'll see our original budget amount was $13.9 million, and of that, as of April 30th, we had expended $9.3 million. Okay, on the next page, SPLOST 5, we still have that money, $1,356,000 in cash, which will be going out soon since we had the referendum. Norwich Street Commons Fund, there have been no expenses for the year to date. We did earn some revenue for the year of $252. We have a cash balance in the Norwich Street Commons Fund of $335,000. Roosevelt Harris Multipurpose Center Fund, we have a cash balance at the bottom of $7,417. We have taken in or had money inflow of $312,000. We've spent out $285,000. I think I have told you in the past that we have transferred more from the general fund year to date than what we had budgeted. But we are looking at an increase in the last couple of months from the CRC after the director talked to the CRC and they did some changes because our census was down and our food costs also have gone up a good bit. So we're hoping to see that gap close now that they've gone in and reallocated our funds, because they were basing it on the numbers that we had coming in, which were under what we had originally budgeted pre-COVID time. Sanitation fund, we have total revenues of a little over $2 million, expenditures $1.3 million, for a net operating income of $728,000. We have cash on hand as of April 30th of $498,000 in the sanitation fund. We also have another $194,000 in a restricted fund to pay into the T Street landfill if we are called to add some more money into that. The sanitation bills, you'll see our trash pickup, year-to-date, $1.1 million, illegal refuse, $51,000, street sweeping, $39,000, for a total of $1.2 million there. The stormwater utility fund has stormwater utility fees of $1 million, and with penalties and interest, total inflows of a little over $1,100,000. We have expended $613,000 for a net to the good of $488,000. There is a cash balance in that fund as of April 30th of approximately $440,000. On additional information, we had traffic control expenses for the month of $1,393. We also had some money in the recreation department. We spent $1,637 in the month of April for some plumbing expenses. We also had subsidized fees for our athletic program of $1,484. That's where we pay a part of the fee that the county charges. And that was for 53 basketball participants. The last page is, of course, the Roosevelt Lawrence Center, and total expenses for the month of April were $11,454. Year to date, a little over 70 or close to $75,000. Their expenditures stay about the same, and obviously the highest amount we spend on that is for salaries for personnel. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to.
Questions for Ms. Mills? Commissioners?
I'll make a motion that we approve the budget report as presented.
Second.
Motion second for the approval of the budget report as presented. Any further questions or comments? And I have one. Excuse me, what I said? Budget? Okay, finance report, my bad. I apologize for the finance report. Question for the subsidized fees for recreation. As I look at this, it seems that we are paying $28 per person to use the county to subsidize for the our children going to use the county.
Their fees were higher than our fees were when they took us, when they took over our recreation department. And to offset that for our citizens, we agreed to pay the difference between what we always charged, and to the county, we pay the difference between what we would have charged and what they're charging.
Sure.
So that it wouldn't go up for our residents.
Sure.
So did they actually increase the cost to participants, and that's why the gap is bigger?
They did. I remember last year they did, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit, but
So we're subsidizing at a higher.
right. We're paying the difference between what they're charged and what we charged at that time.
Yeah.
So,
Any further questions on our finance report? Okay. No further questions. The motion is second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed have the same right. Hearing nothing from the opposers, I believe the ayes have it. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Mills. Thank you so very much. Okay, we are now at item number 6. Consider approval of resolution number 2021-10, establish stormwater utility for the upcoming building cycle. Mr. Garo Aberson, our Public Works and City Engineer, is presenting.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
This first item is, as you mentioned, a resolution to set the rate for this year for the stormwater utility. As you know, we established the stormwater utility in 2018 to fund our stormwater management program. The revenue from the utility provides operating funds for our stormwater program salaries, capital, some capital improvements, equipment purchases, regulatory expenses, and that kind of thing. As we, in the process of establishing the utility, we created or we completed a rate study and cost analysis. And so far we've basically followed along with that rate projections. Our first rate, initial rate being $3.95. The second year, I believe we moved to $4.50. The only variation was last year, the study recommended moving to $4.75, but because of COVID, we did not make that change. But now this year, we're ready to move that rate up to $4.75 per ERU equivalent residential unit, which is the base billing rate per month. So each residential property in town is billed for one ERU. And so that results in a charge of $57 per year on the tax bill for residential property. Non-residential properties are then billed per the number of ERUs or the amount of impervious surface on their property. So the more rooftop, parking, sidewalks, impervious surface that you have on your property, the higher the cost. A rate of $4.75 works out to a standardized rate of $2.14. And standardized just means it's a way to compare different utilities. They base it on 1,000 square feet. That compares to several around the Southeast are at $2.08 per 1,000 square foot. So that rate is very much in line with other municipalities around the Southeast in Georgia, Florida, Carolinas, throughout the Southeast. So, we're asking for approval of this resolution to set the rate at $4.75 per ERU per month for the stormwater utility for fiscal year 22.
What is our rate at now?
$4.50.
And how much is that annually?
$54 per year. So
we're
it'll be a
talking
$3 annual increase. Yes, sir.
Okay.
I would really like for us to present to our citizens a listing of where that fee goes. Like, what are our projects for the year? What can we let them know is going to be worked on, improved? Where does, that money go towards stormwater management? I think people want to hear that. They'd like to see it in print. I think we should be presenting it at all the NPA meetings so that people can have a good understanding of what's being done, how we're managing, and get an idea from them what needs to be priority for coming up the next year, let's just say.
Commissioner, I would like to, I agree with you. I would like to defer this item to our next meeting so we can get this information out to be presented to us and also be able to present to the others as well. I don't think, hopefully this is not an issue with our budget that it will cause some problems or whatever. But I do agree that people are asking about what does the utility do, where is it going? Although I know we can answer that very quickly, but yet still, I think we need to put something out so they can actually have that information. I do know, since we have established that utility, that we have been able to address a lot of the flooding issues that's happening in our city, for one, and also some of the other things that we need to take care of. And people have been paying their fair share. That's other governmental agencies and other buildings and so forth like that. So I realize the need for it, but I think we just probably need, as you stated, maybe to allow our citizens to know exactly what we're doing with those funds. Educational piece of it.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I'm assuming if it comes back before us at our next meeting.
We'll have that information. I'm pretty sure we did.
Are we good with that, or are we?
We can bring back some information. Of course, the fee, supports the operating and some of the capital equipment, but it won't impact as far as your decision tonight on the proposed budget. So
Okay.
the budget will not be impacted at this time by deferring it. And we do want to make sure that we are making, those strong impacts in the communities so that people don't feel like we're not getting, a better service. We did add the additional ditch crew. We have had a little challenge in filling those positions and getting it up to speed, but we are working really diligently to get that crew set, and also with the prison crews coming back.
Well, also, I think our Brunswick News, I don't know whether it was them or whomever put out that we were increasing by $4.75 instead of only increasing by 25 cents. I mean, they gave it up, they laid it out, but they laid it out.
Slant, yeah.
Yeah.
They laid it out in a way that seemed that we were really, really increasing that more than what we really was. So educational piece I think would be best that we do that. So I entertain a motion to defer it to our next meeting.
Motion, we defer the stormwater rate resolution until we get information back, whatever you need, Garrow.
Thank you, Commissioner Cason. I thank you, Commissioner Williams, for motion second to defer this item till we get this information for our next meeting, if possible. Any further questions or comments?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I appreciate the comment about having trouble with the ditches, and I really think that we should have our letter in to the corrections department for a third crew if it became available. I just think it would be really, really good backup. Don't have a problem with what we're doing at all. I just think that we should have the backup.
Okay, we will consider that. Motion and second, and any further comments? All in favor of deferral, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, have the same right. It appears the ayes have it, so please get back with us on that with the information so we can get the educational piece out to all our citizens.
Will do.
Thank you. All right, now, I think you're still here at item number 7. Consider approval of a contract with Georgia Department of Corrections for offender work crews. Mr. Albertson, you're
Yes, sir.
presenting again.
As you know, we have used inmate labor forces from the Bacon prison, for lack of a better name, in Alma, Georgia, for the last several years. We had used 3 crews up until last year. They were suspended, of course, when COVID hit. During that time, when we did not have those labor crews, as Ms. McDuffie mentioned, we increased our public works crews for stormwater ditch crews. We added some personnel positions there to take the place of this inmate crew that we were missing. So this year, this will continue. We will continue with our in-house public works ditch crew, and then this contract is for 2 labor crews, inmate labor crews from the prison. One would be primarily assigned to the cemeteries for cemetery maintenance. The second would be what's considered a skilled labor crew, and they're supposed to be more adept or more skilled with carpentry and concrete and those kind of trades. So the cost of the crews are $49,318, which includes the guard's salary and everything. So for 2 crews, that would be a total of $98,636. I guess it's important to note that we also provide equipment for them to use while they're here and transportation back and forth from our site to the prison in Alma on a daily basis. Those costs are not included as part of this. This is strictly just the labor portion of the contract.
Let me ask you a question, Earl, and I'm just looking at this, and this skilled labor is the same as regular labor? I mean, there's not a difference in those?
No, sir, they charge it out at the same rate.
Wow.
That, they're actually paying for the guards. They're not necessarily paying for the type of inmate.
Right.
I know it saves us tens of thousands of dollars every year. Do you feel like the hours, because I know the drive time, and then they leave at 2, they come Monday through Thursday. And is the skilled labor and the abilities at the level, do they seem to be pretty consistent?
They do. It's definitely a benefit to us. Obviously, we'd like to have more crew members and have them here for longer times during the day. But we kind of ran some numbers on them, I guess, but soon before they left, kind of to compare how it would come out to us hiring our own crews. And it is cheaper to use them than we can afford to buy somebody or afford to hire somebody.
Yeah.
It allows us to do a lot more, especially like sidewalk work with the skilled labor crew and the part we're working on over here. It just allows us, it stretches our crews a lot more. So I think it's definitely worthwhile to use them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, any further questions to our city engineer, public works director concerning this contract of using correctional crews?
The only question I have is, do you feel like at the end of, if we approve this, as we get towards the end of this cycle, we would reevaluate where we are with city crew versus, do we need to add that 3rd crew from the Department of Corrections, or?
We will certainly evaluate that and kind of see where we are. I mean, this contract will take effect July 1st through next June, so it follows our fiscal year.
Right.
And as we go along, we'll evaluate that. And as suggested, we can even call the prison and see, what's the chances of picking up another crew if it became available. I don't know how much leeway they have to add a crew kind of in the middle of the year. We'd have to have that conversation with them. But we can certainly run those numbers and kind of see where we're at with that.
Okay, commissioners?
So let me ask this question, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
So do they have a 3rd crew, or do we just settle for 2 because of the ditch crew?
Right now, we just told them we just wanted the 2, and we would use the ditch crew. We would staff that with our own people.
Yeah. So
yeah,
probably would be
I'm not
prepared
sure
to
if we
do
were to go
3.
back and say, okay, now we'd like to have the ditch crew, a 3rd crew, how much leeway they have to assemble that crew in the middle of a contract year. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the mayor to sign a contract with Georgia Department of Corrections of Bacon County for 2 offender labor crews at a cost of $98,636.
It's been properly motion second for the approval of the contract with Georgia Department of Corrections for offender work crews for total cost of $98,636. Are there any further comments or questions?
Yes, again, I want to highly recommend that we go ahead and put in a letter and do exactly what the discussion up there is for a 3rd crew.
Okay.
I mean, if we don't have the 3rd crew this year, is it going to be very challenging next year if we want to add that 3rd crew because they're already kind of at another community?
We'll certainly have that conversation
Yeah.
with them.
Okay, any further comments? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposes? Hearing no opposes, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Apperson.
Sir.
Okay. Item number 9, consider approval for city manager's item. Consider approval for city manager to enter into contract for removal of shrimp boat located at Mary Ross Waterfront Park. Wow.
Mayor, this item derived from a issue that came up last June, where we have a shrimp boat that was illegally docked at the city dock. We went through and we have spent countless hours on this issue. And I can have the city attorney, the police chief, the DDA director, Garrow, all of us have worked trying to resolve this issue. We've looked at numerous options in terms of trying to dispose of the boat and trying to move the boat. There were some, I guess, conflicting information from the state because they have, I guess, policies in regards to abandoned vessels, but it really could not be directly applied to our situation here. So we have tried to go through countless, I guess, avenues in order to resolve the issue. Currently, last July, the judge actually ruled the boat to be abandoned, and he required the captain at that point to remove the boat. And the captain, we tried to give him some leeway. I spoke with him on the phone almost weekly for a while, trying to see if they were going to be able to move the boat. What they ran into was the situation where the engine in the boat, I guess, blew up, died. I don't know what happened to it, but they were unable to replace it because of the cost. So the boat has been sitting at the dock up until last week in that same position. Last week, the city attorney had sent a letter, certified letter, to the owner who had been identified by DNR. We went through the process of verifying and identifying the ownership of the boat through DNR, and the city attorney sent out a letter to the owner notifying them that if the boat was not removed in 30 days, that the city would take it, move it, and dismantle it. The problem that we've had is that we've gone through, again, talked to marinas, talked to different locations in regards to trying to move the boat, not necessarily store it, but dismantle it because we have no use for it. We have gotten quotes that have gone from $30,000 to $50,000 for the removal of this boat. And of course, you know, my concern is that I don't want to spend city money on this boat. This is, you know, just something that is a problem, and unfortunately, it's going to take some money to solve it. But we have been trying our best to minimize that impact. We do have funds in our dock fees funds to possibly pay for the dismantling of the boat, but we're still trying to determine what's the best way to do that. We've talked to people at the marina, we've talked to people at City Market, we've talked to people in St. Mary's, we've talked to the DNR. Believe you, we have looked at every avenue, and again, I can have the city attorney and the DDA Garrow attest to all the time that it's been spent on this issue. I'm bringing it to you all to ask that once this 30-day period is over, that we have the leeway to contract, if necessary, to have the boat moved and dismantled at the least cost that we can possibly have. And we are still working on that. I didn't mention, but we did talk to the Port Authority. We've talked to the Coast Guard. You know, we pretty much tried to exhaust every avenue in order to minimize the impact. that this particular problem has on the city. I hope to come back with, you know, some kind of option that won't cost what I'm asking, but I was asking that you give, you know, approval for us to enter into contract once a decision is made.
What's the situation with insurance on the vessel? And secondly, can we put a lien
I think we're gonna own it. That's what she's
on
saying.
these people? You know, we just get held hostage by this, and it's so irritating that
Yes,
we
definitely.
have to bear the cost of it.
I was somewhat along those lines about the lien. But the check, we're gonna own this boat now? And are we owners of this boat now?
We would not be owners necessarily. We would be removing it and disposing of it in accordance with law.
How can you
Or
just
Can we be lien holders? Are we lien holders?
We could, the law is complicated in the sense, I don't say complicated. The law is not supportive in the situation we have. The abandoned vessel law of the state of Georgia contemplates, you know, a small boat being tied up to a public dock where the city could go down there, tow it, put it on a trailer and store it somewhere until the 30 days runs. And if the person doesn't come and pay it, you foreclose and move it. It's 130-foot shrimp boat. We cannot, there's no mechanism that we can utilize in that sense to follow through with this procedure. So when working with the DNR, they have kind of admitted, you know, that there is a sort of a hole here. We don't know what for you guys to do. So we've become very creative in what we've done to make sure that we're complying with what the abandoned vessel law is in doing this. So, you know.
So I have a question. If an abandoned vessel, let's say it was a smaller boat, we took it, we put it in storage somewhere.
Correct.
When the city has an auction, we can't sell it?
That's what I was talking
Well, I have actually asked them to put it on Craigslist, put it on Facebook. It's basically have very little value.
It's more of a
Place-
liability.
It's more of a liability to anyone who takes it. And in terms of I don't know, the question that Commissioner Martin asked about insurance, I don't think there's any insurance on it. Well, I pretty much know there's not. And from what I'm told, it's very difficult for shrimp boat owners to get insurance, even with a good boat. So this one is practically worthless.
We have gone through, I mean, we've gone through so many conversations and avenues to see whether or not the riggings were of value, the interior generators were of value, what could possibly be taken to offset the costs of disposal. And it's not come back positive, I'll say that. And we don't mean to make light of it, but it's almost to the point where, you know, if it just disappeared in the middle of the night, I think we'd all celebrate. So, you know, there's just it's come to the point where I've had discussions with the city manager that I think we need to go to our local delegation and say, we need changes in this law to provide for what happens when a vessel is so burdensome and so large that there's no way for a public, you know, municipality or county, public officer of any kind to move it or remove it in the manner that they've prescribed by law. Again, if it was a 21-foot boat that we could throw on a trailer, it would already be gone from the dock.
So we have the person's name.
We do.
We have that information. So the cost of removing it, can we not lien the person that owns the boat and put a lien against whatever they own?
The law does not.
A judgment.
We
Can we
could
not
seek
do
a
a
judgment. We could go seek a
So, I
judgment.
mean, a judgment is in essence the same thing, but still.
Yes, we could seek
Yes.
a judgment against the owner of the boat.
And that, I mean, we are not saying that we won't.
Right.
That is part of the process. And we certainly would try to recover any money, you know, we wouldn't exhaust to the point where we're, I guess, spending more money than we have possible to recover. But we definitely would try to get back funds that we put out for it. And we
How
are.
how about the monthly dock fee? Are they paying that?
Excuse me,
No, they ain't paying no dock fees.
Mr. Casey?
He said, are they paying?
Yeah, the monthly dock fee. How much in the arrears are they there?
Approximately $3,500, I think.
So why is it taking this long to do this?
Mr. Kaysen, I have worked on this probably every week since this started, or at least had some conversations. And there's just no real, I guess, solutions. And again, we're trying to do it with the least amount of fun and costing as possible. I mean, Gerald has gone to several different entities, contractors, to get pricing of dismantling. I mean, we are having an issue with even moving the boat and getting it out of the water and, you know, that kind of thing. A couple of weeks ago, it started taking on water, so we had to pump it out. We had the fire department come and make sure that it was not sinking. You know, there's just not an easy solution. We do have some options right now, and I'm hopeful that they will come through. But you know, they're slim at this point, so I still would like to have the option.
I thought that we had an ordinance, and if folks weren't paying their dock fee there, that ordinance had some specified time that we would be taking action. Did that not ever get put in place? I know we worked on a dock ordinance for a long time, Brian.
Presented and tabled.
So
What year was that?
what can we do?
2018, perhaps?
Yeah, I remember all of that.
That's because he wanted the Trump boat to come in there. That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay, notwithstanding the situation where we are now, what can we do and put in place in order to not have this happen again? I mean, can we put spikes on the edge of the dock that would prevent anybody from tying up in the dead of night and walking away?
No, I
I
don't think
think-
we could do that. I mean, we could,
I think what Corey said earlier, our city attorney said about getting with our local delegation and getting some laws changed, because we're down here on the coast. I think that probably us, St. Mary's and Savannah, maybe Darien will probably be the only cities in the whole state that really has to deal with this issue. You know, so I think that we should make sure.
recently dealt with it as well. If you
Who?
recall, in McIntosh County, you go
Yeah.
north on 95 and look to the right at Head Creek, you'll see multiple vessels that were
Yeah.
put up in the creek and left there. So they've also, you know, if you think about the waterways in the state of Georgia, the majority of them are going to be lakes, tributaries where a boat could easily be removed from the dock, trailer, and put in a boat, you know, in a impound lot. And this one cannot.
Brian, how long did you say that boat is?
It's 62 feet.
Sorry, I misspoke.
Actually, he
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, that's what I thought. You said 130 feet or
No,
135 feet, but it just takes me back. It really does. That it's not cue to the folks down there if we're not getting a monthly payment, that we've got to react to it. I could not believe it when I saw this thing on our agenda. I really can't. We've been over and over with sunk boats down at the dock. This is inexcusable to me. It really is.
So can we?
Not saying that a lot hasn't been done and a lot of work hasn't been put into this. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that by now we should know that we don't need another sunk vessel down there. And seems to me like if we'd reacted a little quicker, that perhaps we could have declared the thing surplus like was said up there earlier, and maybe gotten the thing moved away from the dock a little quicker. And still, I don't understand why the boat, if it's floating today, why it wouldn't float away from that dock. I don't understand that. I had a little bit of experience with shrimp boats, but just a little, you know, enough to be dangerous. But I know that somebody, you mentioned the city market, has anybody evaluated the boat?
I was just gonna ask Chief Mobley if,
Multiple
yeah.
people have evaluated the boat, multiple contractors have evaluated the boat, multiple parties have taken into consideration what it would cost and what would be done, what would need to be done to dismantle or move the boat. And it is not it was just for months, it was not in something that anyone would entertain. I think the city manager has talked to probably every business capable of doing this within the city of Brunswick, and probably up and down, the coast, our coast.
And we have always conveyed to them if they would take it, we would give it. So. Yeah. Exactly. I told them we might even give them $5,000 to go along with it. If they could take it. I mean,
Who has been keeping the boat pumped out, Regina?
I was gonna ask Chief Mobley if, Chief Tyre, I know he has a shrimp boat. If he has he had an opportunity to take a look at it maybe and see if there was anything salvageable or?
I didn't hear what he said.
He said he would not take it for $20,000. He wouldn't take it. All the money.
They understand the cost of it.
we're going to do whatever we can to minimize that cost. And again, I do have some options that we are working on. I don't want to put them out there yet because they haven't been confirmed.
Well,
But hopefully, we'll bring it back with the least amount of impact on the city.
well, Mr. Mayor, in that case, I'd like to go ahead and offer a motion to approve the removal of the shrimp boat from the Mary Ross Park dock with the fees that Ms. McDuffie has put forward between 30 and 50,000. And let's get this thing going. Ain't no sense in keep kicking it down the road if we can't get it done.
The biggest thing is to make sure that we, it doesn't sink.
I got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it. It's got to get going. There's no question, but I've got a question. How long have we known the insurance was not valid on that boat?
I think probably since day one, when it got there.
That boat's been sitting down there with no insurance. I know that was covered in the ordinance.
Well, it probably came in the dead of night. I don't think it snuck in there by
If you
someone.
don't have any insurance, that's time to get that boat out of there is my point,
I don't think DDA is letting them come in there without it. Yes.
Because of where we are, those things happen.
Yes.
Have I made the point
Hold
properly?
up, Commissioner Casey.
I think it's important to.
Mr. Casey, wait a minute.
Sure.
Even if you have been keeping up with that information, you still can't control whether an entity or person has insurance on their property. So, I mean, even if you had all the information initially and they became non-compliant or in default, I mean, that's why it's down there because they can do nothing with it.
Commissioner Casey, your comment?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that we've got the things in place not to have this happen. The minute that insurance certificate didn't show up somewhere down at City Hall, that boat should have been out of there. That point just needs to be made and it needs to be taken to heart because we've had enough problems down there. We worked on this thing and we don't want this to happen again.
I don't think the ordinance, we ever approved the ordinance. We had discussions, but I would really like to see this come back before the commission, for the dock master, the whole 9 yards. And start pushing our state legislators and our local, regional, state to get this in front and more adequately dealt with.
If I remember correctly, somewhere in the ordinance, I think it said that we wouldn't have any shrimp boats at Mary Ross Park.
We didn't pass that.
Yeah, I know, but I know when we were talking about it.
Yes.
It was one of the things in the ordinance.
And then it was said that, no, we need to have shrimp boats. And I'm like, okay, cool. So now we got what we got.
Right.
Well, you shouldn't have what you have down there. Somebody should have reacted to it when there was no insurance on the thing. There should have that's a decision that somebody down there should have made a little quicker than tonight.
Okay, we're gonna move right along. Appreciate everybody's comment. City Attorney, you have one other last comment before we move forward?
I want to ask
Hold up,
one
Mr.
thing
Davis.
here, if I may, before we move on to this thing, and that is, Brian, would you please get that ordinance back up and see where it is, please, and what happened to it?
Not a problem. My suggestion was that as I bring the ordinance back,
Thank you.
to have the commission.
Now move on, please.
Sure. As a whole, approve a letter to our state legislature, and I could put it together to suggest where we might benefit from a possible change to the law. And I would think the other, I guess I could say saltwater communities or however you want to call it.
Coastal communities.
Communities might also benefit from maybe, whether it be a special section related to our situation or just the way the mechanism is provided. I don't think it's any fault of anybody making the law. I just think it's a unique situation.
Yes, thank you.
One of the things I just wanted to note is that we did talk to DNR, and they do provide $10,000 to assist, but we've already kind of taken that into account and spoken with them about that. So basically, they would be contributing $10,000 to whatever effort we make in order to have the vote.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, it's been motion to second. We've had a lot of discussion. As Commissioner Williams said, we kicked the can down the road a little bit. So we are here where we are. So Madam Clerk, call the roll for me, please.
Yes.
Yes, but can we tow it out to the golden ray?
I was gonna say that.
Tie it up to the golden ray.
I was gonna say
Sorry.
that. Yes,
Yes,
Yes, but we need to tow it out to the Golden Ray.
yes, yes,
Yes, yes, so
Put it on a barge.
yes.
they can take it back to Louisiana with them.
They could take it.
Anyhow, yes, that motion carries. Let's move forward. Thank you everyone for your comments as we move forward. Because that's one thing we don't want. We don't want this shrimp boat to sink like one did before.
Lord have
And
mercy.
we had issues with that. Okay, we move right along. We're at item number 10. Consider for approval of pay incentive for city personnel. Our city manager is presented again.
Again, Commission, I am coming to you and asking for, I guess, some additional benefit to our employees. As you know, I have spoken several occasions on our efforts to retain and recruit for our public safety. A part of this proposal is to present or request approval of retention plans that have been provided and presented by the police and the fire department. And then I also am asking for what I would call a relief pay for our general employees. And that pay is because I feel like our employees endured this year of COVID. The city hall has been open every day since I've been here, since May of last year. Our city employees have worked throughout this period, even though, some had to be quarantined, they had, absences, they had to endure, working for the people who were out during illnesses. So I'm presenting this as a relief to our general employees, and then as retention for our public safety. So I will share my screen right now and present some information. I hope you all can see this. I will try and maybe increase the view a little bit. Maybe Commissioner Harris and Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, yeah, bring that up.
Don't want to make it too big, but okay. And the reason that I'm presenting this at this time is because, like I said, based on what our numbers are for the current year budget, as you know, when the police and fire introduced this plan, they wanted to use funding that was excess in their budget at the end of the year. So I have evaluated the budgets and I feel confident that we will be able to pay this out of this year's budget with no problem. So it won't impact the upcoming budget. And of course, this is a one-time proposal at this point. We may look at it for future because we continue to look at, you know, the competitiveness of our public safety, but this is a one-time and we will make sure that the employees know that this is a one-time consideration at this point. And, you know, there's no guarantees going forward. Again, what I'm presenting is for our general employees, a pay, and I'll change the screen. General employees, let me make this a little bit bigger. For our general employees, I'm asking for $1,000 to be paid to our directors, $500 to our regular full-time employees, $250 for our part-time permanent employees, and then $1,000 for our contracted officials, and that includes the city attorney, the judge, and actually the DDA director. And that cost is a total of $45,000 for that payout, and that would impact 82 employees. The total cost for including benefits is $51,885. And that would be for relief pay for our general employee population. For the police department and the fire department, and I hope you all can see this, do I need to make it larger?
Just go ahead and tell us.
Okay. This is the retention proposal, and if you like, the police and fire chief are here to speak to this, but basically it gives an allocation of payment based on persons who have been with us less than a year up to 20 years. Anyone over that 20 plus years get the top amount of $4,000, 15 years, $3,000, 10 years, $2,500, 5 years, $2,000, 2 years, $1,000, and 1 year, $500. And that basically, you can see the number of employees in the police department that's proposed is 59, and 30 employees in the fire department. The payouts would be consistent based on the years of service in each entity, for a total of $101,000 from the police department and $56,000 for the fire department, a total of $157,000 in salary, and then additional benefits of $12,000 for a total cost of $169,010.50. Again, I'm going to my full screen of the total proposal would be $202,000 of salary, $18,895.50 of benefit, for a $220,895 total cost of this proposal. And I had put $225,000 in the initial estimate, which we are within that amount. And again, this would be paid out of this particular fiscal year, so we would, based on your approval, pay it before June 30th.
Questions, Commissioner? Just got one. Are these fixed amounts that will be given to our employees? Well, in other words, it's $1,000, not $1,000 minus the other stuff or whatever like that.
Exactly.
This is fixed
It
amount.
would be $1,000 check.
Thank you. That's good.
Yes, no tax.
Good. Good.
Right.
Comments or questions, commissioners?
I think it's a great thing. I think if we're in budget and we can do this for our employees and show some appreciation for all the hard work that they've done throughout this pandemic and things that they've gone through, I think we should move forward with it.
Let's move on. Make a motion.
I'd like to offer a motion that we approve the pay incentive for the city personnel.
Second.
It's been properly motion second for approval of the pay incentive for our city personnel as presented by our city manager, Ms. McDuffie. Are there any further comments or questions? Tonight we have our police chief, our fire chief, also our city engineer, public works director here as well. Our finance director is sitting here as well, our city attorney, our municipal judge normally comes, but he was here this evening, and also our city clerk that's here. As I said before, they have done an outstanding job, and I'm very honored that we're considering this for our employees. Pay them a good pay, we will get the best. That's why I believe. So I got a motion, I got a second. Madam Clerk, call the roll again, please.
Commissioner Tyson? Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Tyson? Mayor Pro Tem Harris?
Yes.
Mayor Harvey?
Yes.
I think Ms. Casey might be
Is
muted.
communication muted or not available?
He's muted. Tell him, ask him.
Yes.
Dan.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Commissioner Casey. All right. And seeing that motion carries unanimously. We have great employees, and thank you, City Manager, for recognizing that and also giving them compensation for their hard work, the hard pay, especially during the pandemic, and also for their integrity to still be with us and provide great service to this city of Brunswick. Thank you again. Okay, moving right along, we're at item number 12. Consider adoption of ordinance number 1072, amendment to Article 23 of the zoning code, chapter 3, section 21, buffer requirements. City attorney item.
That's correct. If you recall at the last commission meeting, John Hunter presented these, well, I should say this ordinance amendment regarding buffer, the city's buffer ordinances. These are the ordinances we've been working on with the CRC. It was the consensus of the board at the last meeting to properly advertise, and I don't believe we received any public comment on this particular ordinance amendment. So tonight is before you for your approval. If you look at page in the packet, I believe it's page 205. Yep, for this item, it would be after the last, at the very end, it has the ordinance in its final form.
205.
I'm trying to get that.
205.
That's what you said.
I believe so.
That's way down.
I don't know, I
I can't get mine.
It's my 205.
It's,
What is the ordinance number 1071?
Yes, 1072, 1072.
1072, okay.
1071 was deferred.
Okay.
yeah, mine start on page 211.
Okay, because, thank
And
you.
then if you go all the way to the end of that packet, it's in clean form. And I think, you see, John presented the summaries and at the last meeting to try
Okay.
and hit home. The buffer ordinance was not substantially altered, but it was altered in a manner that would better define and provide a little bit more flexibility in how you want to establish a buffer.
Okay.
Did we have, this was a lot of reading material, but did we have definitions of what of different plant material that would qualify for the understory, the overstory, the 3 different layers of buffer?
No, I believe it's only defined in terms of whether or not it's native to the area.
Right, it said native vegetation, so we're just assuming,
I think the only thing they had on it was the heights.
That's correct.
okay,
Whether it was indigenous.
10
or
foot,
whether-
6 foot, and 3 foot.
Right.
okay.
Okay.
I mean, do you feel like we need anything further to define
I mean,
the overstory, the understory, and the evergreen shrubs?
I felt like it would be best as to allow, I mean, no, I
Okay.
don't think so. I mean, with the majority of the time too, when we're looking at vegetative buffers, I mean, it's most of the time you would hope it'd be the existing buffer that was
Yeah.
put in place. You'd hope that would be indigenous or native trees. I don't know if William wants to make a comment, but I don't think it would need to be further
Okay.
defined.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Kitts, I think, sits on that board and would like to say something.
They did take a look at the,
Yes,
Go ahead.
we did not define the actual vegetation due to the fact that the tree board in their ordinance defined the native vegetation in their ordinance.
Do we need to reference that? I mean, what's your recommendation? Do we need to reference for further information on, I'm just asking. I don't want to make it too complicated.
But if you sell it, somebody else will see it.
You know, I don't know. It's a good question. It is a board that, you know, I think if you are within the buffer ordinance, you are likely looking at either redeveloping or developing property. And it's more likely than not that you're going to have to consult the tree ordinance that has been put forth by our tree board. So, yes, I mean, I think it would.
I think you should reference it.
Yeah, it would seem maybe.
Why don't we defer this item?
We deferred the other one. John and I.
I think you should have deferred them both at the same time personally, but I'm just sitting here listening, and I offer a motion to defer this item to
I think it's something that's.
make it conclusive.
I think you should reference
Good
it.
catch.
I second.
Motion second to defer this item as we deferred the other adoption of ordinance. Are there any further comments or questions? All in favor of deferment to our next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Well, a lot on our next meeting.
People who are against can speak up too as well. It seems the ayes have it, that motion carries. So we'll defer that item just as we did the previous ordinance. Okay, our next item is item number 13. Consider approval of payment of the excess tax proceeds from the tax sale of parcel number 01-00798 in the amount of $15,645.95. City attorney is presenting again.
That's correct. Is it okay if I stay over here, I suppose?
You fine.
Okay, great. I think this is only the second, the third overage request we've received since the city has taken back over tax collection services. If you recall, at a tax sale, and normally I would have taken this to the finance committee, I think it got deferred from one meeting, and then we did not meet in May, I think because of Memorial Day.
Yeah.
I have been talking to the attorney that is involved in this, and he's asked that we try to expedite this. So when a tax sale occurs, the taxes, the property is sold on the steps of the courthouse. The city is only legally obligated to keep the costs of the tax sale, the taxes that were previously delinquent that caused the tax sale, and then if the taxes are owed for the current year in which we've taken, we take those as well. This particular property was sold on the courthouse steps in December 2019. The overage amount after the cost of the tax sale, the delinquent taxes, and the current taxes for 2020, I believe, the excess proceeds was $15,645.95. And the way that works is that the previous owner who did not pay their taxes must go to the purchaser of the tax deed, pay them the amount that was paid at the tax sale plus a premium, and then they have the right, the owner, the current owner, has the right to come to the city and claim the overage funds. We don't have a legal claim over these funds. The mechanism provided by law is an interpleader if there's multiple claimants, or similar to what the county did or is doing. The city is also doing something where we allow as long as an attorney has provided a legal opinion as to the title of the property and the claimant executes an affidavit swearing under oath that they are the proper claimant to the excess proceeds funds, we are then able to release them and pay them back. In this case, Doug Adams has represented Mr. Rentz, who was the owner prior to the tax sale. Mr. Rentz has executed the affidavit to the satisfaction of the city, and Mr. Adams has provided a legal opinion letter setting forth what went on in terms of how this title came to be, and both are satisfactory. So I would recommend the approval of the overage payment back to Mr. Rentz in the amount previously stated, I think $15,645.95. This is a large overage. It's one of the
Yes.
larger overages I've ever seen.
Yes.
And so does the affidavit indemnify us?
Yes, it states that if someone were to later on come and make a claim, that is between Mr. Rentz and that claimant, not the city of Brunswick.
I see you say.
To be fair, because of how quickly the tax collector's office is taking property to tax sale, it's somewhat difficult to have multiple claimants because the previous owner's only been gone for a year. You know, if you have a multiple year situation. So right now, it's relatively easy to look back on the title and see that there's no one else that could possibly, I won't say there's absolutely no one else that could possibly make a claim, but it's easy for us to review it. And then if another claimant comes along, that is on Mr. Rentz's shoulders.
Okay. Now, in layman's terms, so it's easy to understand, is that someone paid a lien on a property.
I think I gave this example one
Yeah,
time.
we paid
That's
the tax
correct.
lien.
So somebody owed $500 in taxes. The city would go sell the property on the courthouse steps. But because multiple people are interested in it, someone bid up all the way to 1,000.
Above that, so that's the
The
excess
city takes
fees.
the $500, cost of the tax sale is $10. The current taxes owed is $100. I don't know why I did it that way, but $390 would be an overage that
Right.
the only legal claim would be the previous owner or any other one with the property.
Got it.
Do they have a time limit upon which they can apply?
There, I
For the
believe there is, it's quite lengthy, and then even if they don't apply, the funds would be deposited into the state's general fund.
Ah. Just a question, there's the affidavit here, and
Mhm.
it states,
Claim in
different
excess.
amount.
Right.
So what's the difference?
He didn't pay the 2020 taxes, so we removed those from the amount.
Okay, good. Wow.
And that was a question I was gonna ask, because when I looked at that last night, I saw that difference, and I was gonna ask, did we make sure that we looked at current taxes or prorate any taxes?
Correct.
Okay, so it's kind of like a surplus.
Yes.
Yeah, we call it surplus proceeds.
Yep.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, we can't even draw interest off that money, can we?
No,
Well, we go straight to the state, it sounds like.
if it's
No,
not claimed, that's if it's not. claimed.
Right. It would take, I think there was a question about that at one point, but I don't know if we've had it long enough to would have even possibly created interest.
But we have to put it in a restricted fund account. So
That's correct.
Yeah.
It is held there.
Yeah, I knew, we had to do that, but I
Okay.
earn interest on it.
Commissioner, so this is brought before us.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion to approve the recommended payment overage for taxes.
A
for-
second. Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You finish your motion.
Yeah, we'll finish it.
There's a motion second for us to approval of the payment of the excess tax proceeds from the tax sale of this parcel in the amount of $15,645.95. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion carries.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. City Attorney,
Yes, sir.
question about that. If at some point a council, I'm not saying this group, but they say, nay, they don't approve this, what happens then?
My thought on that would be that I would recommend we immediately file an interpleader. If we filed an interpleader in Superior Court, it would direct the tax commissioner's office to file the funds into the court. So then Superior Court would be the custodian of the funds. And like if you guys had insider information that I didn't know about, that there was another claimant out there, yes, I mean, we would go by the legal mechanism.
Okay. I just want to know what the mechanism was.
Multiple claims.
And they would have to have a basis for it not,
Yeah.
because it don't belong to the city.
Right.
I mean, so they would have to have a legal basis for denying that because it's not the city's money.
Yeah, yeah, I know it's not the city's money, but I'm just saying in the future, if that happened.
I would hope that the attorney at that time would give them.
I would,
proper
yeah, I don't think
counsel
I'd
and
bring
say,
it here to say,
Yeah,
well, we
you
got a bunch of
can't do
people
that.
claiming this money, but
Yeah, you
go
can't
ahead
do
and
that.
give it to this guy. No, we would, well,
Okay,
Yes, property.
commissioners, we have come to the end of our regular printed agenda. I believe there is a need for executive session
correct for litigation.
for litigation.
Mayor,
Yes,
I have two other comments.
okay.
There was a question asked by Commissioner Kaysen when we talked about College Park, and he asked about the Eastview property. And I did send out a clarification that was one of the specific properties that I had been checking on. And I also sent out an email today from FEMA, from GEMA, that they are following our request and our application. And I also asked them to give us a report on, because they had given us a 90-day review period, and we're getting close to that 90 days. So he is going to send us back some information on that as well. But there was just a comment on where the application is in the process. And so I did send that information out to all the commissioners.
Okay.
The other comment I wanted to make was that at the next meeting, I'm hoping to make a presentation on our comprehensive plan and how we will move forward with the budget in trying to get some of the items, just ongoing items, completed, and also moving them forward. Thank you.
All right, does anyone else have any comment before we close out our regular?
I'd just like to thank Regina for that. And I also would like to say there's a second part to that email that she sent out, and it doesn't need to be discussed tonight, but it does need some attention and an answer, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to offer a motion that we adjourn to executive session for litigation.
Second.
Motion second for us to adjourn into executive session for litigation. Further comments? And hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed have the same right. I believe we're gonna adjourn to executive session for litigation, after which we will come back and close out our regular scheduled meeting. We stand adjourned for executive session.
Thank you.
Please let everybody know that we have their when we really appreciate them. Please let them know that we really appreciate it. Okay, it means a lot. Chief, you're so welcome, bro. I'm sorry, man. I am so sorry, man. I apologize. Huh? What? Well, you know what? I thought about that. I thought about like if I wasn't paying for my daughter's wedding, I would give you that money back, but I don't have any money. No, but I would at least give you half of it back. But I tell you what, though, it's good to know that you got my back. I'm serious. But call me next time. Say, hey man, is this you? Do you really need this? But I'm glad we was able to give you guys that money. No problem.
I'm gonna leave my computer right there in that chair.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's good.
Right.
We hope it does, but it's hard otherwise to find things.
Well, you know what, commissioners? I don't know whether we get part of that or not. I don't know.
I didn't hear the word commission.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that, but you know what though?
I thought about that the first time.
What's that?
Every time we gotta play something that always our commissioners gonna get something. Every time. Am I right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, you never get it, but now you get one. So, I mean, well, I'm psyched.
Come back from our executive session, no votes are taken, only talks of litigation. I would not entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All right, we stand adjourned.